What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Boys in the Big Apple podcast. The three of us alongside a special guest today, Jake Ellenbogen, who is a Rams-Jets content creator, but he's also a Yankees fan. I'll start out with Jake. Obviously, you cover two different teams, and you're a Yankees fan, so give your thoughts on training camp opening up, the preseason right around the corner, and, of course, your general thoughts on the Yankees deadline.
Yeah, well, first off, appreciate you having me. I'm still reacting to the news that we just got today about Becton. Really unfortunate. That's been a whole evolution over the last couple hours, going from optimism, okay, he's going to be fine, no need to worry about it, to now, it's not looking good. Mekhi Becton knee injury, more serious. The Jets believe, than originally believed, according to SNY TV, as first reported by Mike Garafolo. Jets expect to find out more tonight, but the previous optimism is gone. That explains why they were working out Dwayne Brown, who, has been a very good offensive tackle in this league. They did sign Caleb Benenoch, but this is not good. I've had a lot of optimism about the Jets, going into this season when I first started covering them. They're a team that, from left to right, their offensive line looks like potential top 10 in the league right now. You look at Zach Wilson, I think he's in for a monster season. You go out, you get Breece Hall. There's a lot of optimism there. Garrett Wilson was a huge pickup. They did so well, basically taking advantage of that Jamal Adams trade. But the problem is, if he's hurt, kind of sucks the wind out of the building a little bit. And I'm not saying he's out for the year. I don't know. I'm not speculating, but it's not good. But I do want to say that, I'm not at training camp, so I can't say exactly, but based on what I've been hearing and what I've been reading and just the research I've done, it looks to me like, Wilson, I think all bets are off about him being a bust. I think he's really going to go into year two and he's going to, prove himself this year. So I do really like the Jets. I think there's a potential, not saying they will, but I think there's definitely a potential of a playoff run, getting to the playoffs at least. But it's going to be difficult. They're in a division where, look, Mac Jones proved himself with the Patriots last year. He's going to be a good quarterback in this league. They were, top 3 in explosive plays last year. Then you look at the Bills, who I have them going to the Super Bowl. And then, the Dolphins, if Tua Tagovailoa isn't bad, they have a really good-looking team around them. So it's a lot of stuff there, but I really do think, the Jets have a good roster. It's just this is going to be very telling. If Becton is out for, a long time, then somebody's going to have to step up. And, Max Mitchell, as much as I like the guy, Louisiana Lafayette, they drafted him, I believe, the 4th round. That's a lot of, pressure to put on a rookie. Just come in here and just take over, at right tackle from, Becton. It's a big loss if he's out. I can't lie about that.
Yeah. Luca?
Yeah, I'm just gonna react to Jake, what he said about Mekhi Becton. I woke up to this morning to the news. I'm a Jet fan, obviously. I was like, oh crap, it was the right knee. So when I was reading up, I was trying to find out what the injury was about. First, he was limping in. It wasn't team drills. It was individual O-line versus O-line. He was going up against the rookie Max Mitchell, as you mentioned. He found himself limping. So here's my thing with the whole scenario. If he was limping on that certain play, why didn't somebody pull him off to the side and say, hey, you're clearly limping, let's give you a break? The Jets didn't give him a break, so he goes into team drills and he gets his foot stuck in the turf, and then he goes down with the injury. I just overall, Jake, I got to be honest with you, the whole managing of the situation has been weird dating back to last season, because if you remember, it was a 6 to 8 week injury, and then it was all of a sudden out for the year. Now, the doctors could have misdiagnosed it, or the Jets could have poorly communicated out to the beat and whoever that what the severity of the injury was. Now, there's a ton of pressure on Becton even still, because he came into training camp, not even training camp, it was OTAs at minicamp, 400 pounds, overweight for an offensive lineman. And the pressure's there. Everybody's calling him a big bust. Mekhi Becton's going to the media, different stuff like that. So he comes back, in a month at the correct weight, and all of a sudden, nothing. It's optimism lost. You have to sign Dwayne Brown. There's no other option. I'm sorry.
I agree. Caleb Beninock is not a good enough.
No,
like that's them, I think, adding depth, on top of depth that's already there. But the Dwayne Brown thing, that needs to start ramping up because, they got to do that. And then, obviously talking about the Jets. Now, my Yankees. Man, this 5-game losing streak sucks. But it's like, and I understand, they're like, 21-23 of their last, 44 games or whatever. And I definitely see why people are starting to lose optimism. But would you want to be a Mets team right now getting hot in August and potentially things turn around in October? They flip, they flip you upside down and they hit you hard. Like, I don't know, man. August is the time to probably slump, to be honest with you. But on top of that, Giancarlo's out. Rizzo, I wish they would have just put him on the IL, call up somebody. Would not have minded that at all. But Rizzo's out. They're trying to get Sevy back at some point, mid-September it looks like. Although maybe they're not because they put him on a 60-day and he was pissed by that. And I mean, hey, everyone's forgotten about him probably, but Zach Britton exists and he's going to help this team when he comes back. So, they have some pieces that are out, and the problem is they have, while they got rid of Gallo, and that's a big, attention drawer. Everyone talks about Joey Gallo, and his, him being a bust for the Yankees has been like national news. I think my least favorite headline is how everyone's like, yeah, the Yankees are 0-5 since they traded away. So they're 0-5 since they traded away Montgomery. They're 0-5 since they traded away, those minor leaguers. I mean, it's just a stupid thing to say. And do you think Gallo's making the Dodgers any better? Come on now.
Nope.
But here's what I'll say. Gallo wasn't the only issue. For every Aaron Judge and DJ LeMahieu and guys that can step up, Jose Trevino belongs in that conversation. He had a huge hit, in that game, singling to right, scoring 2. I mean, those guys, for every one of those guys that steps up, you do have an Aaron Hicks, and Aaron Hicks, he played well yesterday, aside from that gaffe he had in center field. But I mean, when you look at Aaron Hicks, you look at, these guys that just, they don't bat for average. They strike out when the bases are loaded. They ground into double plays. I'll take a strikeout with the bases loaded over a double play any day. But the problem is there's too much of that. And then, I see a lot on Yankees Twitter, everyone gets on IKF. And I'm like, IKF doesn't hit home runs. IKF's not Derek Jeter. He's not Didi Gregorius in his prime. But IKF has been actually pretty good when you need him. In those moments, he stepped up. His defense isn't the best. And I think that's something that, maybe we were kind of sold on him being like this Gold Glove shortstop. And I think people forgot he won his Gold Glove at third base. So not the same position. And, I think when you look at a guy like Donaldson, it brings back, like, people are still like, why did we get rid of Gio Urshela? Obviously you see why, because they had to get rid of Gary Sanchez. I mean, that guy's WAR has dropped every single year. His batting average has dropped. His OPS is career worst this year. So they had to get rid of him because he was just whatever. It's really sad, but whatever it was, he was falling off. But in order to get rid of him, they had to, kind of sweeten the deal. So they gave up Gio Urshela. But the problem is a lot of people are like, they're watching Gio Urshela walk off. They're watching Gio Urshela make these Nolan Arenado plays at third base. And they're like, yeah, I mean, Donaldson is too, but Gio Urshela's batting 265. He's got 10 home runs, and I don't worry about him striking out the bases loaded. So a lot of stuff is gone on where you're like, this team definitely can win the World Series. I think when they're fully healthy, they're the best team in baseball. When they're playing at their best, they're the best. They're better than the Mets' best. They're better than the Dodgers' best. They are the best team in baseball when they are at their best. But they can't have what they just had. This 5-game losing streak, I think people are some are way over the top, like, oh, this team's trash. They're not trash. But they got to figure it out now. This Seattle, they don't have to sweep Seattle. But they need to win this series. They need to get some sort of momentum going. And I think tonight against Logan Gilbert. I mean, obviously, Judge, he's like 0 for 4 against him in 6 plate appearances, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. I think he's going to get it going tonight. I think he'll hit a home run. He didn't homer at all in St. Louis. And I mean, St. Louis it was the biggest sellout crowd that they've ever had in their history at Busch Stadium. And why do you think that was? It was to see Judge. So they didn't even see a homer out of him, although he had, a huge double. He had a huge single earlier in that game. I just feel like this Yankees team doesn't look like a team that's just going to completely, falter down the stretch. Now, I will say that, there have been World Series teams in the past. The team that won 87 games, they were limping down the stretch and they won the World Series. But with this team, they had fight last night, 12-9. I mean, you score 9 runs, you should win most of the games. Just like the pitching, everyone gets on Domingo Germán, they lose 1-0. Like, what was Germán supposed to do? He's your 5th starter, and he's giving you like ace type of quality there, in a 1-run game. And then you have the whole Garrett Cole thing, which, I mean, maybe they need to stop using Higashioka when he's pitching, because Higashioka, when he catches Garrett Cole, Cole's ERA throwing Higashioka is like over 5, and it's like Trevino's is around like 2. So I'm sorry. I mean, there's a lot of different things there, and I mean, I could keep going on and on and on. I've gotten to like Boone a little bit more. I've been very hard on Boone since he arrived here, but I've gotten to like him a little bit more. I just got to say this: he uses the bullpen way too carelessly. When you hear like Michael Kay in the broadcast saying, well, they can't use him because they used him 2 straight nights. Why did they use him 2 straight nights? It's like they didn't need to, Marinaccio's getting through the lineup. He walks a batter. Oh, we gotta take out Marinaccio. We gotta put in, Lutke or whoever. And it's like, it's just, they gotta figure that out, because that is, your rent will be due in October when these guys are all tired out from pitching all those innings.
Donald, you've been pretty quiet. You're a Giants fan. Thoughts on camp, and obviously you're a Yankees fan. You also do a Yankees podcast, Donald. I know you think that Brian Cashman had a pretty good deadline, but you're not a fan of what they've been doing down the stretch here.
Well, a lot of good points, Jake. So I completely agree with you about Boone's bullpen usage, because I think that you can see the proof in the pudding with the way Holmes has been pitching lately. I think a lot of it is to do with, I think he's tired. I think he's been overused. And I also disagree with the way that Boone has kind of used him, where they're focusing him against, like, for instance, a team's middle of the order. I want Holmes against the middle of the order, right? But then that's the 8th inning. But what are you going to do in the 9th inning? So then he puts in Wandy Peralta or something like in the 9th inning. There's not really a plan there as to what happens when they've already used Holmes in the 8th inning. Sometimes they overuse him for 2 innings, and then it screws him up in the next inning. And now you're seeing Holmes has lost his mechanics. His mechanics is gone, because I think he's been overused. I don't think there's been a very good bullpen plan. It's kind of been all over the place. I mean, you saw Marinaccio getting 8th inning duties, and then suddenly he's been sent down to AAA. So and then you're getting a lot of high leverage situations for Litke, and I think he's a softball tosser. I think he's fine, but again, Brian Cashman tried to trade him at the deadline. So how much trust did they actually have in Litke? So why is he getting all these high leverage innings? So it's a bit of a mess, this bullpen. I agree. I've liked Aaron Boone a lot more this year, but lately I've seen some red flags with his management. My biggest issue is his use of Andrew Benintendi. It's a big thing for me. Batting him 6th is really unacceptable, in my opinion. I mean, the guy is an all-star leadoff hitter.
Donaldson 3rd.
OBP.
Like, what are we doing?
I mean, the lineup.
What are we doing?
The lineup in Game 2 against the Cardinals was a complete disgrace. They had no protection for Aaron Judge. You had Josh Donaldson after Aaron Judge, and all the Cardinals were doing were just intentionally walking Aaron Judge and then pitching to Josh Donaldson, because Josh Donaldson's an automatic out. I mean, that is shameful management. It's mismanagement. You cannot put yourself in a situation where your only best asset right now, with all the injuries that we have, is Aaron Judge, and then you have no protection for him in the lineup. After LeMahieu, it's DJ, then him, but then there's kind of a black hole apart from Carpenter and Truvino way down at the bottom. So Boone's kind of messed that up lately. I'm not been happy about that. But the one thing I'll say about Aaron Boone is I like how he's a lot more forthcoming in interviews, and I like how he's showing more passion. Like, obviously, he's going after the umpires. He's protecting his players.
I love that.
I like all that. I'm loving all that stuff. I'm
He was
seeing
awful.
a lot more.
That umpire, I mean,
disgraceful.
That I've never seen in all of the, and I look at all of the manager report cards on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
3+ like over a 3.0 run differential. Like they're saying he gave the Cardinals essentially their
3 runs,
their 12-9 lead. I mean,
yeah.
I that is why they came out of the dugout though, because it was that pitch on Marwin Gonzalez is at the plate and it's in the other batter's box, 3-2, and he strikes out, but in reality, it's not a strike. And so Boone was like, you can keep calling that all game. It doesn't make it a strike. Yeah. And then, of course, the guy was Charmin Ultrasoft, toss him out. And then the third baseman, third base managers, third base umpires shouldn't be allowed to like toss out pitching coaches. Like that should be up for the home plate umpire. I mean, we had Rizzo as the bench coach. The emergency pitching coach was Garrett Cole. Like it was like, what the hell?
It was a mess. It was a mess.
Pathetic.
But no, you're right. So, but no, back to Boone. Him putting Benintendi sixth really annoys me because he needs to be setting the table, and his skill set is not an RBI. He's not an RBI guy. He's not a power guy. So why are you putting him in the sixth hole? If you're going to do that, why did Brian Cashman not just go and get like John Peterson? If that's what you're wanting, if you're wanting someone to play in the 6-7 hole, who's like a low average RBI type guy that can strike out a little, then just go get somebody else. Benintendi, if you're going to go and trade for a Benintendi and also you need to put him up at the top. Put him up at the top. We'll make you after him and then Judge in the 3. The Cards, what do they have? They have Goldschmidt batting third, right? He's their best player. He's batting third. Yeah. So you can put your best player batting third. You can certainly do that. So I completely disagree with the way Boone's managing that. I think it's like Brian Cashman gave him a great player. He's like, okay, dude, I'm giving you an all-star left fielder. That's a leadoff hitter. Go and do what you need to do with him. And Aaron Boone's like, I'm going to put him in a situation where he's absolutely no use to anybody.
I hate it. I mean, I've always been one where I feel like if you have speed and you have contact, you should be batting towards the top of the lineup or the bottom.
Of course.
Because if you want the wraparound, okay, fine. Put Benintendi ninth, and then you have the wraparound. I don't love it, but, I like it more than sixth. I've talked myself into understanding Judge at second because think all those games where he came up, at the end of games because he was batting second, not third. So I do see the reason there. If you bat him first, that's stupid. Like that's dumb. You don't lead off Judge. DJ is batting first or Benintendi, in my opinion, because the on-base percentage shows they give you the best opportunity to get a guy on base for Judge. Simply put. So, I mean, at the very least, I'd probably go Benintendi 1, Judge 2, LeMahieu 3, and then you do Stanton or Rizzo 4. Stanton probably 5, Rizzo 4, and then you have that power going down the lineup. You have to face those 5 guys after Benintendi. There's a lot of power. I mean, DJ has power, he doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but he can definitely, that's not a guy that you want to be like, bases loaded. I mean, he's somebody that can hit a grand slam. You're not thinking
Benintendi. Following on your point, if you put Carpenter sixth at DH, you've got Carpenter batting sixth, and suddenly your lineup's completely lengthened, and there's no easy outs. Right now, the way Boone's got it is like once you get through the cleanup hitter, it's pretty easy.
He's trying to force Glaber and Donaldson to be those guys, and Glaber was arguably an all-star at the break. But he is not in that mode right now. He is in a slump. He's lost at the plate. He struck out multiple times when, they really needed him. They pinch hit him to try to win the game. I think it was against Kansas City, the last game of that series,
Not a good sign.
I mean, I really like Glaber, but Glaber's playing for his life on this roster. I mean, let's be honest here. You know, he's got Oswald Peraza bearing down on him, who does play second every now and then in the minors. So they're getting him ready for both, you know, middle infield. But on top of that, you know, you have Volpe as well, you know, and I just feel like, I mean, they would be screwed if, you know, the Yankees didn't just trade away Thairo Estrada for a bag of beans. I mean, this guy could absolutely play on this team, make an impact on this team right now. That trade was horrendous because it was yeah, we're going to open up room for Odor. Odor's terrible. He's terrible. Like, he's never at any point been that great. And they, like, overrated him on Texas. And now here he is on, like, the Orioles, and he's doing literally the same thing. And you have these random Yankee fans on Twitter that'll be like, oh, I miss Odor. Like, why do you miss him? Do you miss Steven Drew batting 168 too? Oh, his defense. Like, come on, man. Like, really? I mean, the whole Didi thing, I at least somewhat understand. I don't think he is that guy anymore. But at least with Didi, he was really good with the Yankees. Like, Steven Drew was bad, and Odor was bad. And I still see people mention those guys all the time. Steven Drew's probably like 40, but I hear those guys mentioned all the time. And I'm like, you know, but going back to your point about Benintendi, I'll say this. I feel like Boone bats him like they got David Peralta. Like, I feel like he doesn't realize they got Andrew Benintendi at the deadline because he bats him like where you would bat David Peralta in the line.
Exactly. Or like Ian Happ or something like that. Like,
yeah, well, Ian Happ would probably be around, like 3 to 5 range. Yeah. Donaldson is just getting paid so much money that I feel like they feel like they're stuck. Like they have to justify it.
I can safely say I think it's the top 5 worst trades Brian Cashman's ever made.
And I like IKF. I think that was a good pickup. But getting rid of Urshela and adding Donaldson, I see what they were doing. They were trying to get 30 home run Donaldson, 240 at Yankee Stadium. We'll take it. And he's not doing that.
He's also 36 years old.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
I just want to add some input when it comes to regards to lineups. I agree with all of the panel when it comes to the Benintendi stuff. Yes, it was rumored this year that Boone has more control in this team, but I still think the analytics department still has a pulse on the starting lineups. And to me, listen, everybody's going to go out and say, oh, the analytics department, the analytics have gotten to us first place, best record in the American League, all this different stuff. But in the end, it doesn't win you a World Series. I'm sorry, it doesn't. That's just how I see it. I think the Yankees should fire Mike Fishman. And, you see all these analytics. It's not just the analytics. It's how the Yankees use them and what analytics they use. The Dodgers are different. The Astros are different. I'm not a big analytics guy, but, you look at the Dodgers, as I said, all these big market teams using a different types of analytics and having those different crews, it's working for them. For the Yankees, it's just not working. It hasn't worked in years, which is I can't identify why Andrew Benintendi is batting 6th. And it worries me that this analytics crew is going to end up ruining what talent we have on the Yankees. Because at the end of the day, I think the Yankees can compete with the Astros, but I just don't think the way the Yankees utilize them with analytics and the numbers and their so-called reliance is not going to do anything for them. The Benintendi thing. Imagine if we got Juan Soto. Imagine if he's batting like 6th. Like, that's what I agree with some of these things. You go out and get these guys.
Be an uprising, man.
Exactly. Benintendi, all these different guys. You're not putting them in positions to succeed. Everybody's gonna go off about Benintendi, sure, but he's batting 6th. When he was in Boston, he was batting high in the lineup. When he was batting with the Royals, he was batting in the lineup. So you should think, hey, he's our leadoff. He could be our leadoff guy or a 2 guy. Let him lead him off and let the power guys like Rizzo, Judge Stanton drive them all in. That's how I see it.
Let's see, best case scenario, right? If you looked at the lineup, best case scenario, this is the way that they're using Benintendi. Put him in the 6th hole, right? And then following him is Hicks 7, IKF 8, Trevino 9, right? Say that's the best. So best case scenario, Stanton clears the bases, right? So then next up, go Carpenter's on, right? He gets on. This is best case scenario. Then Benintendi comes up. He's not an RBI guy, right? He walks and hits singles, right? So he'll hit some walk singles, right? So so he gets on. Then what's following him? IKF? Was Aaron Hicks? They're not going to do anything. They're not driving in anybody. So you're not actually putting him in any, no, you're not putting him in any position to succeed because Benintendi is not setting the table for anyone. Who's he setting the table for? Aaron Hicks, IKF, Trevino.
No, well,
they're not RBI
well,
guys.
I've been out
that's
of
why-
Aaron Hicks for a while because I mean
Well,
that
for
I didn't want
34.
that deal. Yeah,
I hated it.
I didn't want that
Hated it.
deal. I think his defense is overrated. You want to see defense, like show next time anybody says, but his defense, just show them highlights of Harrison Bader. That's literally why they went out and got him, because it totally ruins every argument for Hicks to be on the Yankees when you look at Harrison Bader's defense. We're not getting that at Hicks. Hicks double clutched a ball that if he threw it back into the field, they might have been able to get the guy at home.
Molina runs like he's got a piano strapped to his back.
Exactly.
And Hicks had it and then just stared at it and just let him run home. Like, he didn't even run home. He
does that a
backwards.
lot, I noticed. He holds the ball in the outfield a lot.
Yeah. And
It's like bizarre. And also his arm isn't very good. Although he had another he had a good day. I mean, he batted 3 for 3, but I mean, still, Michael K was roasting him. He's like, yeah, his exit velocity was probably the lowest that we've seen all year from anybody. But yeah, he's 3 for 3.
I think he said it wouldn't even break a glass window. I think it was.
Oh man, I love the little subtle, because Michael K's tired of this too. I mean, he's been covering the Yankees for years. He's clearly a Yankee fan. Like, he's probably tired of this too. He's probably like sitting there. He's like, "You kidding me? Like, Aaron Hicks is still your center fielder after the deadline. Aaron Hicks is still your center fielder.
Yeah.
We're still batting Benintendi 6th, 7th, 8th. Like, what's happening, man? Like,
Josh Donaldson getting the third cleanup hitter.
He does not hold back on Josh Donaldson. I was hoping Donaldson was finding his stride the other day. I think he went 2 for 4. He had a pretty good day, and the next day wasn't that bad. But I don't know, man. It's just he has no bat path whatsoever. Like, it's bad. Like, and he has the ugliest strikeout swing I've ever seen.
It is disastrous.
I mean, it's honestly on the level. Like, everyone was getting on LeMahieu yesterday. It was yesterday for striking out with the bases loaded, and he had that kind of weird, it was a weird swing. But I mean, think that, but every single time, every single time you strike out, he doesn't even get a good cut on the ball. Like, he literally just waves at it, and it's like, I want Donaldson to succeed. I want Hicks to succeed. But I mean, at the end of the day, when everyone just is all about oh, well, as long as we got Joey Gallo off the team, Joey Gallo wasn't the only problem. And I would argue Joey Gallo probably is going to be a lot better next year when they get rid of the shift. So I wasn't even against keeping him just on the bench. I was against, however, keeping Hicks in the lineup, keeping Gallo in the lineup. Obviously, I was against. But also, just keeping the idea you're going to keep trotting out Donaldson. Push is going to come to shove in October. You can't get all these guys in the lineup. And I can tell you right now, Trevino should start being an everyday catcher, because he's going to have to literally catch every single day in the postseason. You don't want Higashioka getting out there, with the bases loaded.
He's had an awful year. He's had an awful year, both defensively and offensively.
And then you have Rizzo. Rizzo. Obviously, he's going to be in the lineup. You have Glaber at second, so that means DJ can't play first or second. So DJ is going to be playing third. Donaldson's going to be the odd man out there. IKF will be at short unless they call up Peraza, which I don't think is going to happen, unfortunately.
They won't do it, no.
Benintendi will be in left. Center will be Bader, despite what people think. And then I think they're going to alternate. Judge will play right, but I think they're going to alternate Stanton and Carpenter. And then the days where Stanton, is in the lineup, Carpenter will be out and Bader will be there. But the days that Stanton is playing center field, then Carpenter will also be in that lineup together. I think Bader will be a starter, but he's not going to be this fourth outfielder that a lot of people think. I think he's going to be a starter, but he's also going to rotate with that. I think those are the three that'll rotate. They might use Donaldson every now and then because he's getting paid so much. But if you're trying to win a World Series, I don't care how much the guy's getting paid. I'm just putting out the best guys, and Donaldson's playing for a postseason thing right now. In my opinion, at the end of the day, I just don't see him playing in the postseason. So I almost feel like it's almost like a wasted effort here, because that when push comes to shove, you can't kick LeMahieu out of the lineup. Simple as that.
Here's what I'm seeing regarding Josh Donaldson. I think he's got a long swing, and I think he's struggling to catch up with fastballs. But also, just looking at the mechanics of his swing, because sometimes I've been like focusing on his at bats and then rewinding and rewinding, like if he fouls a pitch off or if he swings and misses. I'm noticing his front foot, he lunges forward a lot on his front foot, and he's off balance. And it means he can't get to pitches in on his hands, and he can't get to pitches outside because he's not generating power from his back foot or through his whole body. He's lunging forward, and so you can easily get him out on with off speed inside or pitches on the outside corner. He's going to be swinging at it because his swing mechanics are all off, and I'm shocked. I've been picking up on it for weeks. It's really strange. I just don't think that I think Donaldson's declining massively. I really do. I mean, he was declining last year. His analytics weren't great last year, and has been spectacularly worse this year. And the Yankees were on the hook for $25 million again next year. Apparently, Brian Cashman shopped him at the deadline, and there was absolutely nobody interested. That says it all.
I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, if I'm taking on the Donaldson deal as a young team, you have to give me Dominguez. Like, I'm taking one of your top prospects because that 100%. That deal is insane. It's almost as insane as the Nationals thinking they were going to get rid of Patrick Corbin. That guy is the absolute worst pitcher. I would not want him anywhere near. It's funny that he chose them over the Yankees. I didn't even want the guy, but like, it is funny the way, like, how's that worked out for you, Patrick? Come on now. Like, my God. Was it an 8 ERA now? I mean, It's worth mentioning, by the way, Domingo Germán's ERA since the Astros game. If you take away the Astros game, he's got a 3 ERA. So maybe throwing him against the second best AL team, now maybe the best AL team in his first game back might not have been the best move.
No.
But, I mean, the guy has looked good since. And you're getting that production. You know, you talk about the fact, like, hey, look, you know, I think Clark Schmidt is going to be a good starter. I think he's got all the tools there. You know, he can generate swing and misses, which I like. And honestly, he does it way better than Montgomery, who I actually really liked, and I didn't like the trade. I like Bader, but I didn't like trading him away. I felt like that might hurt the clubhouse chemistry a little bit more than Gallo, like people are always talking about. But, you know, they'll get Sevy back. Montas is not going to be that every single, like, I was really getting tired of hearing, oh, did we just trade for this crap? Like, no, if you think like Frankie Montas is going to come out and he's going to do that every game, you haven't been watching him. Right. He pitches well against the Astros. He pitches well against everybody in the AL East. He was dominating the Yankees when he pitched against them. Like, this guy goes up against good teams and succeeds. So chalk it up to a lot of stuff going on. He had a death in the family. He skipped his original start. So, you know, you think about that as a pitcher, you know, now you're not going on your normal day of rest and you get extra days off. People look at that. Well, he's more fresh. I'll look at that as, well, he's more rusty. And so, you know, he went out there and he looked that way. He didn't have command of his fastball. You know, I just think that, you know, at the end of the day, he's going to be really, really important for their run. And Garrett Cole, I mean, we know what the issue is. The proof is in the pudding. Stop trotting out Higashioka on days where Garrett Cole is pitching. Simple as that. He is not going to give up 6 runs every game. He actually has never done that in the first inning. He doesn't give up home runs like that. Garrett Cole's going to be fine. I mean, really. And then Cortez, I just love how everyone wants to, and not everybody, but a lot of people want to use the excuse because he's not the sexy option. He's not like a Nolan Ryan, you know, gunslinger of a pitcher, that this guy is always, you know, considered just, yeah, you know, he might be a starter in the postseason. Like, no. He's going to start in the postseason. Like, you're out of your mind.
I would take him over Tyon.
Well, yeah. Well, the problem with JMO is that, you know, he has some games where he is like, oh my God, this is what they wanted him to be with the Pirates. And then he has some games where you're like, man, that's not good enough. That's not good enough in New York. That's good enough when, you know, you're not playing for anything with the Pirates. You're just like, basically your entertainment. Like, you're just like, you're on a baseball field. People are going to watch their team and they're not actually expecting you to win. Like, yeah, your 4.88 ERA type of games, yeah, that's fine. But here at Yankee Stadium, that's unacceptable. And he has a lot of those games. Now, I will say, going back to the 2009 championship team, there was one guy that had a below 4 ERA in that rotation. This rotation is a lot better than that rotation based on statistical output. So I think people get really into it, and I get it. I like how many people are into it in August. But I do think we have to calm down a little bit about how bad the rotation is, because it's not bad. And they went out and got Montas. I wasn't a big fan of them, moving Montgomery, but now, this Domingo Herman thing seems to be promising since he, like I said, 3 ERAs last, 3-4 starts. And then they're building back up Clark Schmidt into a starter. They're trying to kind of scrape away the long reliever in him, which I dig. So, I mean, they have everything there. They just need to get healthy, and they need to get right back in the straight and narrow. One thing I'll say is that, Chapman has been pitching well. It's just no one wants to admit it.
We'll see how long that lasts, but yeah, I have to credit Chapman. He's coming on as of late. I want to read some comments real quickly before we get to the discussion. Guys, what do you think of Kevin Durant when I think he means when he basically gave the ultimatum, trade me or fire Nash and the GM? Yes, I know DeAndre Baker was cut. Do not get him. Why is it taking us so long to get Donovan Mitchell? Knicks are waiting on you. I don't mind bringing Baker back. Yanks need to release IKF and Didi Gregorius. Gregorius is a past his prime player.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and caveat to Peraza if that's
Call up Peraza.
Yeah.
If the Giants can bring back 2016, Andrew Adams, who says they cannot bring back Devontae Baker. Do you mean DeAndre Baker? But DeAndre Baker, he's got more. Before we caveat to the Yankees conversation again, he's got more. He doesn't have effort. There was one play that was viral from Chiefs camp where he literally got burnt. We don't need that on our defense. I'm sorry. It's done. Do not revisit that. Andrew Adams was an undrafted free agent, and he's a role player. Please, no. Jose Peraza, Mets legend. Yes, they actually cut him a few weeks back, but I did see him in the AAA. Luca, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I was going to add some thoughts when it came to the starting rotation. First of all, when it comes to the Harrison Bader Montgomery trade, I like Bader a lot as a player. But what concerned me about that trade is there was no we all got the vibe that the Yankees were going to make another move right after Montgomery, that they were going to trade for a Lopez or a Carlos Rodon. That's what I wanted to see happen. Montgomery, I felt indifferent about him. There were times, obviously, he would not have the run support, but then there were times where he has the run support and he just gives it right back. That's my problem with it. It's you can't really define that, but overall, that trade really puzzled me. To me, I don't think this back end of the rotation is stable enough, in my opinion. It's not Montgomery itself; it's the stabilization. I'm using Clark Schmidt full time in that back end of the rotation because that's what he's called up for. Stop with the long end roll. He needs to be there immediately. And one of my problems with the Yankees is there's no meritocracy. It's how much we're spending on you. Same thing with the Donaldson. Same thing with the IKF. If Peraza is doing better,
excellent point, man.
It's not a meritocracy. It's not okay, this guy's proven. We gave Joey Gallo a ton of playing time. Mm-hmm. Even though I know the Joey Gallo era is long gone, but he was here longer than he should have. Aaron Hicks is still getting playing time, which is ridiculous, obviously. I want Bader, Stanton, Judge. What was I going to say? I want Higashioka not getting any playing time. He's horrible. He's not a good game caller.
Call up Josh Breaux at that point if you have to.
Exactly.
And honestly, Higashioka defensively has fallen off a little bit this year.
Exactly,
he's not the defensive catcher that people were talking. So if he's not the defensive catcher and he doesn't have the bat, then he's basically just Gary Sanchez right now. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're not – so, congrats. And I understand, you don't want to play Trevino every day. He's not really used to that. He's been a backup. He's been a rotational guy his career. But, I mean, like I said, call up Breaux, call up Brantley, call up Rortvet. One of those guys has to be better than Higashioka. I'm sorry. Anytime I see him in the lineup, I just groan because I'm just you have to be kidding me. And there's that one combination, especially when Gallo was here. Gallo, Hicks, Higashioka, Marwin Gonzalez, and Boone, are you trying to win a competition for the worst lineup possible? I mean, I just sit there and hurl because it's just so bad. And Yeah, and then Judge he has a day off on that. And it's like, I don't even want to watch this team today. So yeah, I mean, and another thing I'll say to your point, like the Yankees, people talk about like, oh, well, this guy got called up. Like people use the term like the whole Cameron Maben thing, oh, well, he was this top prospect and he got called up too early and was never. That's not the reason. First off, he didn't end up being like super successful. He ended up being what he was supposed to be. But the point I'm making here is that you look how many times the Yankees have failed to call up guys and they waited too long. And I think there's a guy by the name of Esteban Florial who has just honestly been used poorly by the Yankees farm system. Everybody wants an excuse about why he's not in the major leagues. It's always like, yeah, his strikeout rate, or, oh, he's not stealing bases. He's got 35 this year. What do you mean he's not stealing bases? Like, his power's gone since the wrist injury. He has 14 home runs. How many home runs do you want, a AAA baseball player to have at this point in August? I just feel like it's excuse after excuse to not call him up. They didn't trade him away. They didn't trade away, Andujar either. And Andujar's playing well. These are MLB players. I mean, whether you want to admit it or not, they are. Thairo Estrada was an MLB player. They traded him away for literal cash considerations. They're the freaking Yankees. Who needs cash? So that bothers me, because then you get into the whole the Clint Frazier thing. Like, did they ruin Clint Frazier? Did they ruin DV Garcia? I think they did. I think they absolutely ruined him. I think now they're trying to rectify the situation because they traded, 8 arms out of their, top 30, during the deadline. I mean, and that was another thing that I'll say about Montgomery is that you trade Montgomery. That would have been a perfect time to bring up Waldichuk, but you already traded him. So it was like, man, I think that really did set them back. And now I feel like they realized, all right, we got to get Clark going. Domingo Germán, by the way, isn't that young. He's 30 years old. I feel like people think he's still like 26. So they got to get Clark Schmidt going, because one thing I will say to kind of alleviate the pressure on that, the Yankees clearly had an idea going into the MLB draft when they went out and they got a bunch of guys that are 21 years old. I think they went out and got guys that had higher floors that are going to get quicker to the major leagues. I think this was smart because I think they knew they were going to be players at the deadline. And so they wanted to go out and grab some arms that would not take forever to get through rookie ball, but to like be in AA or AAA, in 2 years from now, and then potentially getting them in and kind of repairing, filling the cracks that are left in that farm system. Because the top 30 before the deadline was, top 7 in the league. And now, I mean, they're probably around 15. I mean, let's put it this way. The Yankees acquired a guy for Joey Gallo who was like 18th in the Dodgers farm system. He's now the 10th guy in the Yankees farm system. So, it is definitely weaker, and that's what happens because, you go out, you acquire talent, but there is a concern though, because you're not using these guys. I mean, Florial's now 21st. Before the deadline, he was like 30th. Garcia wasn't even ranked, I think, at the end of, at one point. Now he's ranked again. They're trying to make Garcia work. We'll see. I'm rooting for him. I hope he does. But I do see a lot of Justice Sheffield in that guy, and that, he is shorter in stature. He doesn't have the flamethrower arm that you would like. Whereas exactly. I feel like Waldichuk had the tools. Wisniewski, I didn't mind trading away because I didn't think Wisniewski was going to be anything more than maybe a 5th starter or like a long reliever. But I felt like Waldichuk had like middle of the rotation tools, and when they traded him away, I was pretty bummed about that. But I mean, just looking at it again, I think it's time. I understand how the options work, so before anyone explains it to me, I get it. But to not have Florial, in the major leagues. And to argue that Hicks should be playing over him, I mean, I don't get it. And I don't understand Andujar either, man. I mean, Andujar, you can use your analytics all you want, but when Andujar comes up to the plate, I trust him more than I trust Hicks. And that guy's been in AAA for months. That's all you need to know.
I mean, listen, Andujar this year, it wasn't even that long ago, this season, was playing a better defense in left field than Joey Gallo and Aaron Hicks. And he was also hitting better than both. And Andujar gets sent down, and that's why Andujar put in a trade request, and the Yankees didn't comply. I mean, it's kind of misusage of Andujar, and I feel bad for the guy. He's got a career that he's trying to save,
Yeah.
and he's got his own career that he's trying to make, and he's got money to earn because soon enough he's going to do a contract, and the Yankees have not put him in any position to help his career, and they're not helping themselves because he's frankly a better hitter than Aaron Hicks for sure. So they kind of messed him up. He was playing third base, and he was almost a Rookie of the Year candidate. But he didn't play good enough third base, so they made him work on that. And then they weren't happy with his defense at third, so they made him try out at first, and then third, and then left, and then he did all these things to comply to the organization, and the Yankees still haven't given him the opportunity that he deserves. So I feel bad for Aaron, for him. I really do feel bad for him. I definitely feel bad for Florial because best example was last year. Florial lined a double off the wall. It was his last at bat of his first start, and then he gets sent down to AAA right after. Minutes basically after the ball game, he gets sent down. So they clearly don't like Florial. They've barely given him an opportunity. You don't really know what we have with him yet because they've never given him an opportunity. He might just be a good AAA player, but we don't know. He's certainly too good for AAA. And if the Yankees don't have a plan for Florial, right? They clearly don't. They just acquired Bader. So why have they got him on the roster? Why did they not trade him? Why did they not put him in part of a package? So they've misused him. Then we get to Clint Frazier. He's a bit of an a-hole. I think we can all admit that. But certainly when he first came here, he showed signs of being a very special talent. But the Yankees misused him because they preferred Brett Gardner, and they didn't have a plan for him. So they sent him up, called him down, sent him down, called him up, sent him down, called him up, and then Clint Frazier fell apart. Completely fell apart. So the Yankees did nothing for him, and then they finally boosted his value up. He somehow got Gold Glove consideration. That was your opportunity to trade him, but the Yankees held on to him without having a plan to use him, and then in the end he ended up having to be released. So they've misused him. They've misused a bunch of prospects. You can just go right through it. Davy Garcia thing. I mean, he's never recovered from that okey doke.
Division series outing.
Division series. This is one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen a professional baseball team ever do. And no one situation. Like they put nobody in a position to succeed. And the Yankees defended it. How could they possibly defend that? There's nothing to defend. They lost. It was a mistake.
Well, I mean, you go back the big three. Jabba Chamberlain, Ian Kennedy, and Phil Hughes. I mean, they only let Phil Hughes really emerge as anything, and Phil Hughes was probably the least talented of the three, if I'm being honest. Ian Kennedy was a Cy Young candidate when he went to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And when you look at Jabba Chamberlain, they stopped telling him. They told him to stop throwing hard. Like they tried to change everything about him. And Jabba, we all know the bug game against the Indians. I mean, that was the end of him essentially. Like he never recovered after that, which is really unfortunate. But the reason I always bring up like their past in that regard is because this has been the Yankees. They've been very consistent in misusing these prospects. And so they're the team that calls up Ivan Nova, who's literally their 24th prospect out of 30, and they don't call up the top guy. And then the top guy ends up being lost in the Rule 5 draft, and you're like, oh, this guy's killing us. Who is this guy pitching against the Yankees? And then someone on the broadcast brings up, yeah, he was selected originally a Yankee, was selected on the Rule 5 draft, and now he has a 67 ERA. Yeah, it's like that happens so much. And now the Yankees normally don't lose trades that badly because of that. It's normally like they lose guys in Rule 5, things like that. Typically when they trade like Caprilli, and he didn't end up being that great. I don't know what's going on with Blake Rutherford. Really sad there. It looked like he was going to be a stud. But that stuff hasn't really come back to bite them, but it's really the low key stuff that no one talks about. The Rule 5 draft seems to always bite them in the ass. I don't know, maybe just it's me, but I've noticed that. And, It's unfortunate because I'm a big prospect fan. I love the farm system. Being more of a NFL fan and not having a minor league, I can appreciate the minor league of baseball more. But it just bothers me how baby these guys are, how much manipulation it is to their service time. It's a disservice to them. It's a joke because, when people are like, how did this guy get paid so much money? Man, Judge deserves all the money in the world. He's had to wait, 7 years to get paid? I mean, come on now. It's absolutely insane the way they do it in baseball. Having 4 arbitrations. I mean, it's stupid. You go to baseball court, you sit there, and they tell you how bad you are. Even though on one hand, like Derek Jeter was saying, in his documentary, it's like, on one hand they love you and they tell you how good you are during the season.
Mhm.
Then when you're in baseball court, they're trying to argue that you shouldn't be paid as much as you want to get paid and you're not as good as you thought. And it's like,
And Aaron Judge almost had to go through that. He was minutes from having to go through that this year. Aaron Judge.
Yeah, it's
he's just about to have a Mickey Mantle year. And he was about to go to arbitration. And that's on Brian Cashman, man. That is one Brian
He's
Cashman.
done some good things, and I really do like Cashman. I think, when it's all said and done, he could end up in Monument Park. I really believe that. But he's done some things that have been very questionable. And, the usage of the minor league guys, the prospects, I mean, top prospects don't always work out, right? Jurickson Profar, if you remember him from the Texas Rangers, dude was supposed to be like the next Derek Jeter. I remember everyone was talking about, oh my God, this guy's, range and, he's going to be the leadoff hitter for Texas. He did end up being that. He's good. He's on the Padres right now, and he's actually playing pretty well, but he's not the next big thing. Another thing, Jorge Mateo was like one of the top prospects for the Yankees. He didn't end up being a star or anything, but he's all right. I get when top prospects don't pan out, but when you don't give them the opportunity to show you if they're going to pan out or not, I mean, when people are like, he's come up to the major leagues and he's just not good enough. Florial has not come up to the major leagues and is just not good enough. He's had a cup of coffee in the major leagues. Okay, let's be honest here. And what everyone always used the wrist injury, and then they say things that can easily be just destroyed. An argument that can completely be taken down, like the whole, he doesn't have power, he's got 14 home runs. He doesn't steal bases, he's got 35. He doesn't hit for average, he's batting 295. You can literally pick apart every single argument against Florial coming up, and it's mind-boggling to me because there's this certain type of fan that thinks they know more than everyone else in when it comes to minor leaguers and why teams aren't calling guys up. You don't know because you're going based on what I'm going off of, and I see the MLB top 30. That's what I know about the prospects. I try to follow them as much as I can, but I see what the MLB.com ranks them. That's not the Yankees top 30. The Yankees have a different valuation of those guys. It's why D.B. Garcia is somebody that's probably at the bottom of the top 30, but Cashman is really trying to invest all the time and effort to bring him back because they really like him, and they really like guys like that. But I don't think they really like Florial, and it just honestly isn't a good look. You can say all you want. Yeah, the scouts are around him. He's not quite what we thought, but you didn't trade him at any of those moments. You turned down all those deals, and I'm not a fan of going out and just getting players left and right at the deadline, but you turned down all those deals where they didn't happen because you didn't want to include Florial. That was the one big thing. Oh, you could have had this guy, but you didn't want to, include Florial. And so now Florial has no value, apparently, and you still won't call him up, even though he's still playing well. This guy's not batting 175. He doesn't have 3 homers. And then when you look at Andujar and him, and then it's just it's a headache, really, because, on one hand, this team won 70 games so far, and you don't want to complain too much because you're like, all right, this is a good team. And we've been fortunate to watch good baseball the majority of the year, whereas other teams are sitting there like, can the season end, please? But at the same time, it just gets to the point where you're like, man, you're doing it again. The whole Jesus Montero thing, the whole, you're doing it all over again. And it's like, when are they going to realize? This is why I'm excited. And this is why I think Yankee fans are more excited for Peraza and Volpe than most prospects they have been, because right now there is this belief, since they didn't trade either of them at the deadline, that they're actually going to give them a chance. And if that's true, that's exciting to have a middle infield that's entirely homegrown, that's in their, early 20s, for the next, 7 years? I mean, at least. That's exciting to me. And then Dominguez, and the thing I find funny is how everyone's saying Dominguez, they're calling him the Martian, and they're getting his cards and everything. They're going crazy about Dominguez. And those are the same people that are like trade him away at the deadline. And it wasn't even like trade him away for Soto. It was like they wanted to just get rid of him. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, you do realize there's a thing called COVID that happened in 2020 that really killed these players' development. If you really think about it, these minor leaguers had to completely change their routine, everything they were doing. You had an Anthony Siegler who was going through all those injuries, the ambidextrous catcher that I actually still think could do something someday. But you have these guys that are going through these injuries and, are trying to develop, and it's already so hard to do that. And now on top of that, you're telling me that they're going to miss the entire season. All this development is out the window. All of these in-game reps are out the window. That hurts your farm system. It hurts anyone's farm system. So I think, unfortunately, if that affected you as a baseball player, if that affected your development, you don't get a pass. Like, people have completely forgotten about Siegler. He was a first-round pick. He's somebody, out of all the catchers they've drafted, he seems like he could be the most likely to actually be a catcher, like an actual catcher in the major leagues. They're probably going to move Wells to first base. I mean, that's probably what they'll do. Bro, they keep saying they'll probably move to first base. Gomez is exciting, but they're like, yeah, he's not the greatest defensive catcher. What I find funny is like people will be like, the Yankees need to just start actually drafting, defensive catchers. And I'm like, it's not that simple. This is exactly why guys like Johnny Bench winning an MVP, Thurman Munson winning MVP, Buster Posey, Joe Mauer, these guys winning MVPs at catchers, it's just not common. It's not a common occurrence. It's not common to find guys that hit that well. That's why Posada is loved by Yankees fans so much. He was not appreciated enough. Like, simply put, not by Yankee fans, but just in general. The guy was huge for them. And so now it's like, yeah, I mean, finding a catcher like that is a big deal. And I mean, the Yankees kind of wrapping it all up and turning it, all back, bringing it all around. Trevino has been a breath of fresh air for the Yankees. They needed him so badly. And we didn't realize what they were getting when they got him. He has been a breath of fresh air for them. He has been huge because if he was hitting on the level of Higashioka, this team would not have 70 wins. They'd have 60 wins, maybe even less.
Let me just add, when it comes to the prospects and all that, that's my worry with Anthony Volpe and the Yankees. Listen, Volpe is like treated like God in the Yankees organization and the farm system. And I was like at the deadline for I really wanted Luis Castillo, and I fully believe that when it came. Listen, would I give up Volpe casually in a Castillo deal? No. But if it came down to it and the Reds said to you, final offer, are you trading Volpe? I would say yes. And my problem is, Jake, I don't think the Yankees have a plan for him. In my opinion, because that's the problem. The Yankees don't have a plan for these guys, and then they falter, as you said. Nunez, Montero, all these starting pitchers are becoming relievers. All these catchers are becoming first basemen. They just don't work out.
I think that's fair. I do think Volpe seems to have it. He's the shortstop of the future. I think Peraza is going to be that kind of. Not on obviously the level. I think he's going to be astronomically better than Miguel Cairo. But think Miguel Cairo, how he would play second, he'd play short. He'd play second, he'd play short. If Jeter didn't play, he'd play short. Like, that type of guy. I think he can do both. I think Peraza is also going to be utilized as a third baseman. I think we're going to look at him as a, kind of a utility infielder. But he's always going to be in the lineup type deal. Like, Peraza is going to be an all-star if he pans out, if he reaches his ceiling. And then I think when you look at Volpe, I think he's going to be an all-star. Are these 70 prospects? No. But is there any 70 prospects out there? I don't think so. I know people want to say Riley Green is. I'll hold my judgment on that one. I have not seen that out of him. The guy for the Mets, Alvarez or whatever, I don't see 70. We haven't had a 70 prospect since Trout and Harper, essentially. So, I mean, maybe Soto, you could definitely say there, but 70 prospects don't grow on trees. So, is Volpe a 65? Maybe. I don't think that's out of the question. Peraza is probably a 60, if I'm being honest. And so, those are starters. Those are starters in the major leagues. Those are all stars. I think all-star prospect. I mean, 55 is probably pushing it. Like 50 is like an average star. 55 is a good star. 60 is an all-star. 65 is like, upper echelon all-star. And then 70 is like literally top 5 in the league. And I don't think the Yankees have had any 70s. Now, I will say this, and people will probably say that I'm lying or that I made it up, but I never really followed the MLB draft back in the day, and there was this one pick by the name of Aaron Judge. It's the only guy I wanted in the draft. They had 3 draft picks. They drafted Eric Jagiello from Notre Dame. Didn't want him. I remember Yankee fans saying he'd be the next Derek Jeter. I was like, no, he's going to get traded. Sure enough, he got traded. I think he was part of the Chapman deal.
Correct. Yep.
So you had him, you had Ian Clarkin. And I actually liked Clarkin, but he had so many Tommy John issues. Like it wasn't going to work out. He clearly was never going to get to the, he wasn't going to get to the majors. It wasn't going to happen. But I looked at Judge and I saw so much of Giancarlo Stanton. And I was like, there's no way this guy falls. And my friend and I were watching the draft and we're like, all we want is Judge. And they passed him the first time for Jagiello. I'm pissed. They passed him the second time for Clarkin. I like Clarkin. Still pissed. Then they get him on the 3rd pick. And I was like, dude, they got him for like what? The Nick Swisher compensatory pick. I mean, Aaron Judge, when they got him, I was like, look, he's raw. It's going to take him a little bit to get his strikeouts down. And sure enough, like he still strikes out a lot. But it's nowhere near as what he was, what he looked like he could have ended up being. And, the reason I bring him up is because like I was a big fan of Aaron Judge. I knew he was going to be really good. I didn't think he'd be this good, but I knew he was going to be like really good, probably all-star level. I didn't have a 70 grade on him. I didn't think he'd be a 70 prospect. The guy that I'm really excited about is Spencer Jones because I look at left-handed Aaron Judge. When I watch him, I'm like, this guy is like how I felt.
He's been killing it. Have you seen his numbers?
Yeah. I mean, he hit the hardest, according to StatCast history, he hit the hardest hit ball exit velocity in college baseball history. So, I mean, before the draft, once again, I got into this draft, and before the draft, when the Yankees, like all these guys were being, tossed out, and they were talking about the one guy, Cole Young, I think his name was, and a lot of people wanted him, and I didn't. I was so set, like I was with Judge. I was set on, Spencer Jones, and I'll tell you, I really think Spencer Jones could be on that level. I mean, maybe not the level we're seeing now because I don't know who would be, but I think Spencer Jones is going to be really good. And I think they are going to have, I think they're more likely to have a plan for those guys that do just like, no doubt about it, have that power. It's not even like debatable. I think when the Yankees get into issues, notice it's the guys that are like, they might hit 27 home runs. They might hit 17. Like it's the Florials, it's the Andujars that aren't going to hit 40 home runs, but the Yankees don't turn away from power. So if Volpe starts hitting 40 home runs, like they're calling him up tomorrow. You know what I mean? That's the thing is that I think that's what, and I don't agree with it necessarily because I think you have to have a balance of your lineup. Home runs are great. And I definitely see, from this Cardinal series, if it taught me anything, how many of those fly balls were home runs at Yankee Stadium? It's a completely different game. If you really think about this whole series, those lazy fly balls, there's a Twitter account that literally like we're showing all different moments in the game. Judge would have hit a home run. The deep center one was a home run at Yankee Stadium.
Just to interrupt regarding Spencer Jones, he went 1 for 3 today with a 2-run double in his 3rd pro game.
Love that.
He's 5 for 10 over his 3 career games with 4 RBIs per Eli Fisher.
He also can play the field too. Like, I mean, I don't want to call him a 5-tool player because I haven't really seen him steal bases on the level that you would call him a 5-tool player at, but he's got 4 legitimate tools. And I mean, he batted 170 in college. So, I mean, I'm excited for that guy, but I do think, like, again, going back to the Cardinal series, like, if you watch the Matt Carpenter fly ball, you didn't think anything of it. You're just like, okay, it missed the warning track. That's a home run by a little bit at Yankee Stadium, So that whole series would have been a lot different at Yankee Stadium. And I think that's really been their secret sauce is that they have, it doesn't even matter about the level of power these guys have. They've been using that short porch and right as a an equalizer, and they do it better than anybody at the stadium. I mean, no other team hits home runs like the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. Nobody. And so, and that's the funny thing is the argument when people are like, oh yeah, you play in a softball stadium. It's like, why aren't you hitting home runs out of it then? Like, well, why is it just us? So I feel like because they're so tooled in that, regard, I do think that they focus so much on the power. And when they saw Peraza start to take it up a notch, notice that's when he got brought up to AAA. He got moved up to AAA when he started hitting home runs. Volpe left single A, went up to double A when he started increasing that power. Because the scouting report was that Volpe and Peraza were around like 20 home run guys. And now the scouting report's like, this Volpe guy could hit 40 someday. And that's the thing. So that's why, like, kind of going back to your point, like not having a direction, I think those guys are about as safe as can be because they weren't dealt during this deadline. And I feel like if you were going to deal them, you would have dealt them to go out and get Soto, because that doesn't happen. Teams aren't that stupid to trade away a 23-year-old who is a generational type of, prospect talent, right? Having that much success at that young of an age. You when you find those guys, you don't just trade them away. So that offer doesn't come around every, time. And because of that, I don't think there's going to be an option for them to go out and trade, their prospects away for anybody like that next year or the year after. And then it'll be too late. They'll be in the majors and then they'll see and they'll be like, all right, we're not moving these guys. That's what I think is going to happen. Unfortunately, what does this do? Well, Gleyber Torres is on the outside looking in. And I think he knows that his time with the Yankees, as sad as it is probably borrowed time at this point because, this is somebody that looks like he could have been one of the faces of this team. And they didn't actually hate trading him away at the deadline. It sounds like he might have actually been included in a Pablo Lopez deal. And, I really like Gleyber. I don't know what the hell happened to him. Because even when, like I said, before the break, he was an arguable all-star, he isn't the same hitter. Like, you watch him, and you're like, that's not the same guy. He was so confident. You get up to the plate, and you never felt like he was going to strike out with the bases loaded. Why? Because since 2018, he leads the league in walk-off home runs. I mean, like, why would you think that guy is going to strike out with the bases loaded? Now, I see him come up to the plate. I'm like, this guy's so lost. And it's upsetting, but at the same time, this is why people are excited for Volpe and Peraza because they feel like, all right, Peraza might hit 30, but Volpe's going to hit around 35 to 40, and it's not just home runs. I think they're going to hit for average, and they're also going to help. I mean, I do love how everyone is so in on Volpe's defense, but how many of you are actually watching AA games? Let's be honest here. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's regurgitated crap. And like the other day, Peraza makes some crazy, circus throw or whatever. And people are like, oh, it's Jeter all over again. And it's like, I don't even know if he's going to play short, But I think these are the two middle infielders. And I think Yankee fans have a lot to feel good about, with those two. Because they need that. They need that youthful exuberance. They're an old team. Let's be honest here. From catcher, Trevino's 29. We love him, but he's 29. Rizzo's what? He just turned 33 today, 34. Gleyber is the youngest one. They don't even want him, right? Like he's 27. Falefa, he's a stopgap. They'll be getting rid of him as soon as these guys, move up. Donaldson's 36. Judge is 31, 30, Stanton's 32, 33. Benintendi's like 28, but he's going to hit free agency and they're probably not going to bring him back. Carpenter's 30, whatever. I mean, like, they're old. I mean, even like the fact that like I'm watching Domingo Germán and I'm like totally forgetting he's 30 years old. I mean, it's unfortunate, but they're backing themselves into a corner where obviously they're the Yankees. They can spend their way out of it if they want to. But if they are not careful and they trade away too many of their guys in their farm system, they're going to set themselves back.
Agree. Donald, any feedback?
We've covered everything for sure.
Luca?
Jake keeps hitting the nail on the head, so I'm happy for that.
Jake, what time is your show so we know how much longer to go? All that stuff.
I don't think we're gonna do it tonight because I actually probably ran out of time to do it. But it's good, man. I'm having a good time.
Yeah, so are we. So I'm gonna get some questions in the chat. In baseball, age is not as impactful. Old teams and young teams can win. Yeah, it depends when certain players' primes are. He says yes, Jake, 100%. Judge plays like 25 years old. Yes, you're awesome, Jake. Gonna make sure to watch the show on your channel.
That, Joe.
Torres and Hicks are getting traded in the offseason. Yes, Joe, I read your comment. Yes, Joe, I just did. So be patient.
I really think that Torres is going to get moved from Pablo Lopez in the offseason because I heard that the Yankees were going to resume talks with the Marlins about Lopez, and I think that would be a terrific addition, especially that Tyon's going to be gone, so you have Cole. Again, I don't know if they're bringing back Severino because he has an option, and the Yankees just might decline. That's what you have to do because the guy can't can't stay healthy. So you have Cole, Nestor, Tyon's gone. It would be like 2 or 3 spots open, so I think Pablo Lopez just fits right into the Yankees' plans. And Clark Schmidt, too.
Joe says Peraza and Volpe is being sold to us like they are going to be 100% Lindor Ramirez combo.
I kind of feel like they could be. That's actually a really good comp, in my opinion, because you have the power there, you have the speed, you have the contact. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I mean, Volpe, he has the makings of a 5-tool player, and people are talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the answer to this question. MH5 tool player is the ceiling. We all know what the lows can be because it's the Yankees. Yankees signed Joey Gerber, who's a pitcher, I believe.
Yeah, they assigned him to a rookie class because he had a big injury about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it up, but I didn't want to interrupt. David Garcia is in Double-A now. He was in Triple-A the entire year. He's in Double-A now.
I'm not too worried about that because Boone was explaining. Not Boone. Boone does care right now. Boone will probably never see him again. But Cashman was saying that they wanted to bring him back down to Double-A and really, because I mean, this guy pitched, for 2 years with an injury that no one knew about, which I actually have serious concerns.
Double-A is more developmental anyway than Triple-A. You get more serious development in Double-A than you do in Triple-A.
People thought I was crazy. I thought they should have put Clark Schmidt in Double-A and just let him roast through people, give him that sense of confidence, like, have him pitch 8 innings, start pushing him to be like, they put him in Triple-A and he's pitching 5. And I'm like, that's actually a big issue I have with baseball nowadays is like guys are they're pitching 5 innings. I mean, that's not even a starter at that point. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
Like, I don't know. I think it's a lack of confidence in those guys, and I think that catches up with them, because you're like, oh, great, I've thrown 80 pitches, now I'm going to get pulled.
I'm glad you touched on Schmidt because Schmidt has done himself no harm at all this year. He's pitched really well. His curveball looks electric this year.
Those 3 innings he pitched against Kansas City were some of the best 3 innings I've seen from, a middle to long reliever in baseball.
Yeah, his stuff was electric, and then the Yankees sent him down. But they obviously want to stretch him out, which I understand. They better take that opportunity as soon as he's eligible to be called back up. They better do it, and they better put him in the 5th spot. Although, as you say, if you look at Domingo Germán, he gave you 5 innings of 1-run ball. He did everything you could possibly ask for in a 5th starter.
Yeah. And I think that's valuable when the postseason comes around because he doesn't have to start. Everyone talks about, and this is my biggest issue, my holdup about Montgomery. Oh, he wouldn't have been in the starting rotation. I don't care. That guy is now my long relief pitcher. Are you kidding me? He can just come in and, how many innings is he going to eat up? Think about that. And it's like now I have Germán. Like, I know Germán can pitch against teams like the Cardinals and not get destroyed. He got through Arenado. He got through, like I said, he gave up a run, but he got through Arenado. He got through Goldschmidt. That's one of the nastiest duos in baseball. And he got through them, I think, twice, I want to say. But because he didn't get destroyed, so he didn't get through them 3 times. But yeah, I don't know. I just think, having guys like that, as long relief pitchers in the postseason. And I mean, there's biggest issue with postseason is that you can only have 26 on a roster. It's absolutely asinine. It's stupid. It makes no sense. I mean, the baseball purists will say, oh, well, it invokes the fact that you have to be strategic. And I'm like, no, that's dumb. How about the strategy is that I created the best 40-man roster in baseball. I should be allowed to use it. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the dumbest thing that you can only use 26. That doesn't make sense. Like, when the Yankees had to keep Mike Ford off the postseason roster back in the, I was like, what? It's so stupid. Like, Mike Ford was a key contributor.
Yeah, Edwin Encarnacion was trash that postseason. He was a constant strikeout machine. He was way past it.
Yeah, that was bad. And I was a big fan of his, but I wanted to get him 8 years earlier, not that. Oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hate the postseason roster limit. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm someone that always complains about the NFL, because it's like you have the 53 and then you can only dress 46, which literally makes no sense.
Stupid.
But it makes even less sense to have a 40-man roster and not actually have a 40-man roster. What the hell is the point of the 40-man roster besides making call-ups more, I guess, in tune with everything? Make them more simplistic. In reality, it doesn't make it simplistic. It makes it more complex. It makes decisions have to be way more thought out. And once again, you can't use them in the postseason, so they're incredibly stupid.
Yeah. I never got that NFL as a sidetrack. I never got the NFL 7 inactive rule thing. I also got never got the plastic bag thing, the clear bag thing, because I had an issue with that like a week ago when I went to Giants training camp. I'm going to go through some comments here. I like the idea of Lopez and a Wendell trade in the offseason. Obviously, I got to ask you this, Jake. Are you that in on Wendell like these Yankee Twitter people are?
I don't care about him at all. Bring back Benintendi. I want to see Benny Bats.
That's right. He's a free agent.
He's 28 years old. That's the type of guy you want to sign. Okay, I understand he's going to want a lot of money, but like, why does everything have to be a rental? If you know the guy is going to pay off, if he works, you'll know at the end of the year. Right now, Benintendi, you wouldn't bring him back based on knee-jerk reaction. But come postseason,
because Ben's misusing him.
Yeah, exactly. But come postseason, if this guy's raking and he helps you win a World Series, you're not going to bring him back. He brought back Rizzo. That's exactly the type of mindset you should have. You shouldn't automatically assume the rentals. Just like Montas, if you feel like he's going to make a lot of sense to your rotation moving forward, why wait until he hits free agency? Why not try to negotiate over the offseason? If this guy is huge for you down the stretch, he's already shown you in Oakland, which is literally the most poverty organization. They're going to move to Vegas, and on top of it, they have the worst stadium I've ever seen in my entire life. But he's pitching there, and he has a 3.13 ERA with literally no run support. So he's got 5 and 9 on the year. I mean, this is somebody you'll know pretty damn quickly if he's going to fit in your rotation plans or not. And if he does, Cashman shouldn't wait. He should be like, hey, let's just let's sign him now and let's get that over with. Because if you don't now, okay, he's a rental essentially, in that the fact you only have one more year of him, And Benintendi, I think, is the biggest culprit because the guy's 28 years old. And who are you playing out there? You don't trust anybody. You don't trust Florial. You don't trust Andujar. Gallo's gone. You don't want Hicks playing. You have Bader one more year. He'll play center. It's like, what? Are you going to move Stanton to left field? Are you going to bring back Carpenter? As much as I love Carpenter, I mean, he'll be 37. Might even retire if they win a World Series. So that's my thing there, is that, how about let's stop just calling them rentals and let's wait and see. Let's have a wait and see approach on calling an all-star 28-year-old left fielder that generates great contact on the ball, that's got a great swing, that can hit to the opposite field, can poke it right through where it needs to go. I don't want to necessarily see that guy walk in the offseason if he's still batting over 300 and is a huge focal point on how they win a World Series.
No, I mean, I agree. He needs to be he's a safer bet. What we need from Montas is for him to prove that he's healthy, because don't forget he's had shoulder inflammation issues, so he needs to prove his health for the duration of this year. I'm certainly not opposed to re-signing guys earlier. I mean, remember we gave Severino a contract that was probably a little on the sooner side for him, and he was hurt. So
Should have
the
signed
Yankees
Judge.
need to be smart about that. But yeah, they should have prioritized signing Judge. They didn't prioritize signing Judge, and look at the situation they're in now. So
To be fair, I deal with this with the Rams too, because I said over and over and over again they should have signed Corey Littleton and they let him go. And like there have been guys where it's like when you see that you are getting a deal if you sign him now, it's not that he's not not like that's the thing. I see a lot of fans they'll say, well, they couldn't have signed Judge. Judge always had a plan to make this amount of money. That's not true. The guy hadn't seen that much money. So if you put, even Aaron Hicks's deal in his face when he was age 26, you don't think he's taking that?
Yeah.
10 years, 70 million? I mean, maybe he doesn't. Maybe you move it up to 10 years, 100 million, but like I don't understand how, and again, I want to give Cashman credit, but that is something that bothers the hell out of me because what was your plan? I understand you're not trying to screw the man out of his money, but I mean, you also have a job to do. And if you sensed, I mean, I don't know how you didn't sense it after his rookie year that this guy was going to be special, but I don't know how you Wander Franco, didn't he get a 14-year deal? And he's like, 23?
Tatis.
I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe because they looked at it from the other side and they're like, we just acquired Giancarlo Stanton and, he just got, a 14-year deal or whatever. And they're looking at the negative effects of that. But it's like, no, I think they should have, jumped when the iron was hot. I mean, just go in there, start the negotiations. It just doesn't even feel like they had dialogue. They're like, well, we have them under control. We'll just use arbitration and all that. It's like, how about no? Just make it happen. I mean, is Judge going to play until he's 40? I mean, it's like now all of a sudden you're going to have to give him a 10-year deal. It's going to be worth, $325 million or he's not going to do it. And I mean, I think they've backed themselves into a corner where they literally can only lose because they're going to have to pay Judge astronomical amount of money. He's almost at the end of his prime. And I don't mean that in the sense that he's going to fall off anytime soon, but 27 to 32 is basically your prime essentially. So he's almost at the end of his prime, numbers wise. And on top of that, Yankee fans will eat you up if you let that guy go. He's the Jeter of this team. I mean, if you want my honest opinion, as far as what he is, what he means to the organization, he's got way more power. He's a completely different player, but he's very much Jeter in the way he carries himself, the way he does his interviews, the way everybody loves him. I mean, he is the Jeter of this team. And if you let him go, this is not Robinson Cano. The fans will not have your back if you let Judge go. Because Robinson Cano left and people are like, screw you, Robinson Cano. You go and get your money. Go lose in Seattle. It's not the same. If Judge leaves, people will be like, screw you, Yankees. What were you thinking? You let a guy...
That's what I was saying earlier, that this is on Cashman. This whole situation is on Brian Cashman. They could have signed him years ago. Could have signed him after his rookie year. The most outdated philosophy the Yankees have right now is that they don't negotiate mid-season. That is arbitrary. If there is a deal to be made, you do it regardless of when it is, whether it's off season or during the season. If they can, get it done, because they cost themselves millions and millions and millions of dollars had they not just started negotiating them with them last year. Why not?
They did with Jeter too. So I mean,
exactly, and it cost them the relationship with Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter's never forgave Brian Cashman for the way he treated him.
Yeah,
for the way Brian Cashman treated him. So this is very real. The only thing I'll say about Aaron Judge, I think he will too. But Aaron Judge, he's been speaking in the past tense in interviews. Let's not forget. I mean, Derek Jeter would never do that. You see, he's like,
no, I know.
Derek Jeter would never, ever do that. Derek Jeter always said he was committed to the Yankees. He only dreamed of being a Yankee. Aaron Judge has never once said that. He wants to come back, yes, but he is talking in the past tense from time to time, which means that he is playing a game. And the Yankees put him in that position. The Yankees put him in that position where it's all finance. It's all finances now. It's now a business. Aaron Judge is now more than aware. It's now just a business, and he's now playing that role where he's like, okay, well, if you're going to send me almost to arbitration, arguing over $4 million, then okay, you think this is a business? I'll play the business game. Or you want to go and make my contract details public? Okay, you're playing hardball with me. I'll play hardball with you, and that's why it's Brian Cashman's fault. He put himself in that position. Never needed to happen.
I don't think he's asking for that much. I mean, here's the thing, okay? Judge is bringing people to the stadium. Mm-hmm. So from a business perspective, it makes no sense to let him go because he is just raking in the dough. How many people are going to games? And Michael K pointed this out. I mean, on a Wednesday at 1:00, the stadium shouldn't be close to being sold out. We should also probably not play 1:00 games on a Wednesday. Maybe, I don't know. That might make more sense. But, Michael K pointed that out, and he said the reason people are taking time off from work, the reason people are, going out there, against what, time constraints they have is because they want to see Aaron Judge hit home runs. He's in the midst of a season that is bringing life to the sport.
I got breaking news.
Oh.
Connor Hughes, there is legitimate fear Mekhi Becton's season could be done.
Oh, my God.
Apparently, the knee injury is unrelated to what happened last year. So, I'm sorry, Jake, you have to decline his fifth-year option.
Yeah, they're backed into a ridiculous corner here because I don't want to just rule out a guy's career, but I mean,
right.
There is a point where you're playing at 400 pounds, 380 pounds might be too much. Like you might not be able to do that. And
exactly.
You also, as Becton, can't lose 50 pounds, right? Because you've never played at that weight. Now you're looking at it's awful. It really is. They got to get Dwayne Brown on the phone right now. I felt like that was very telling when they started having him work out. That was very telling about the situation because I saw, false alarm. He was just limping. It's all good. And then I saw him working out and I'm like, no. There's something is up here. And I have to imagine that, Dwayne Brown is probably going to be the next move. And it really sucks because they did a really nice job going out and getting Quan Alexander to inject some life into the linebacker room. So you're adding on. Now it feels like you're just kind of replacing. But Dwayne Brown was really good. 2 years ago, he was one of the best tackles in football. I don't think he had a bad PFF grade last year, if I'm mistaken. So, I think that would be good for the Jets. Might even be better than Becton because you can rely on him more. Becton, I think it was just the sheer upside. The idea that it was going to be so great to have a guy like that, in the run game and just if he works out, there's nobody like him in the league. But yeah, the Jets unfortunately are going to be, put in a corner here where they're probably going to have to sign Dwayne Brown, not take his option, not pick up his option, and, run the risk of Becton going somewhere else and becoming, a monster if he ever develops because I just don't see. It's awful. I really hate it for him. I really
do.
Hate it for him.
He's a good guy. Trust me. Joe says Joe's a Patriots.
We all hate the Patriots here.
By the way, let me just say. By the way, I've just been reading stuff how Patriots camp has gone really badly, Joe. The coaches are flustered. The offense is disorganized. So I'm just gonna put that out there, Joe. But in all essence, I'm going to ask you, Jake, what do you do with Becton after this year? Do you try to field offers for him? Because I don't want to – see, here's the thing. I didn't want to draft a tackle when it came down to it for the Jets. I wanted, corner, edge, whatever. No safety, obviously. I said we have the guy in Becton. It's like I don't want to go back on my statement, but you probably did not know that he's going to have another knee injury. It's like you don't want to bet on the fact Jets are planning for the worst-case scenario. Obviously, they had interest in Aquanu. It's like I don't want to go back on my statement, but you also had, the stuff around the weight. It's just
I don't think you're going back in your statement because the entire, the landscape of the entire discussion has changed.
Right.
When there's a major injury like that, I don't think you're going back on your statement. I think you're adapting to what news we're being given. And right now, it sounds like Becton's season is going to be over. I mean, you don't have guys saying this effing sucks, man.
I got it. Hold on a second. I'm
know?
sorry to interrupt, Jake. Mekhi Becton's injury is to his kneecap and patella.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what Lemieux had last year. He's done.
Yeah,
This is for Joe.
That's not good. That's really,
Crap.
yeah.
Oh my God! Listen, I'm gonna blame this on one person. It's not gonna be Mekhi Becton. It's Erica Emisola. She had to really bring down Jets Twitter yesterday when she started ranting about Fireman Ed and causing a fuss among Jets Twitter, starting negative vibes. I gotta blame her for this. Then she works for she's a producer for EA Sports, and then she starts all this rumbling. She claims she's a Jets fan, and then we have this Monday. Mekhi Becton is injured and probably out for the year. So there's never luck as a Jets fan. You're always cursed by something. We had all this optimism, and then Mekhi Becton injured.
Funny, some of the Jets fans, when I went on the Jet Lounge,
You went on
Twitter
there?
Spaces, yeah, they had me on there as a guest, and it's funny. Some of them were like, "Hopefully, Jay covering the Jets, he's like the luck charm," and now it's like people are gonna be like, "Nope, not even Jay could save this one." But it sucks, man, because Becton was going through all that BS about everyone questioning him and questioning how much, the typical stuff, questioning how much he cares about football, and if he's 400 pounds and he doesn't want to win, he doesn't care. Like, maybe that's not the case. Maybe he wanted to play at 400 pounds, could play at 400 pounds, and then it just didn't happen. Like, I love how it's always like, let's just absolutely, trash the young player. I mean, this guy isn't that far removed from being in college,
Right.
I mean, these are kids at the end of the day. Yeah, they get paid a lot of money, but I mean, man, people were just like laying it into Mekhi Becton. Also, by the way, one thing now, I'm 100% signing George Fant.
Oh, extension? Yes. That is not even a question.
Like, I mean, that should have already been done. Now he'll probably have more leverage. So that could probably be more expensive. But George Fant is now an absolute must for the long term. And I think
30.
you look... Yeah, and I think you look at left tackle, unfortunately, in the draft, which I think, you were kind of hoping you didn't have to do. But now you probably have to do that. I mean, Max Mitchell, you can't just throw him in there. I don't think he's ready. I like him. I think he's got some upside. I think he could eventually be a starter. And getting Dwayne Brown, that allows you to kind of bring him along slowly. And then if, after the season, you don't bring back Dwayne Brown, then maybe you put Max Mitchell at right tackle. But that is, man, that's brutal. It's really brutal.
It would be an incredible nightmare scenario, Jake, if both tackles are not. If you have a very unlevel ground this offseason where you have Becton still injury prone and Fant not signed. You do not need that. You need Fant locked up like that. You need Dwayne Brown. You need signed to a contract right now.
Yeah, that's awful. I really feel for him. I mean, it's like, what can you do? He was ready to prove everyone wrong, and now you have to go through another offseason. I mean, it's grueling rehab. It really is. And it's just like, now he's on the same level as Ronnie Stanley of the Ravens. He went through 2 straight years, wanted to come back, then he gets hurt again. Those are really tough. I mean, that's like, you're getting into like exclusive territory. Guys normally don't have back-to-back injuries that, cost. It happens. But, like, unfortunately, it happened with Tariq Cohen. It happened while he was on camera. I mean, it's brutal, really is. Yeah, that makes me so upset. Man, the football gods need to calm down with the injuries, man. I don't know what we did to them.
Nothing.
Tim Patrick, that poor guy, he went from being like a 6th receiver in any rotation to now he ends up being a starter. And now the football gods want to take away his career. Come on. Not right.
Well, you know who I blame for this injury, and I'm not even a Jets fan. I blame the MetLife turf.
Were they on the MetLife turf?
Not when Becton got injured. When Connor McDermott got injured, however,
Maybe they could have aggravated it though. You think about it. Marcus McKeithen, 5th-round pick of the Giants, he tore his ACL at FanFest. So,
I absolutely hate turf. Like, I think it should be banned.
Exactly.
I think if you care that much, think about this, okay? You ever watched the show The Boys?
no.
It's the superhero show. It's like, basically TVMA, and it's essentially like the government, controls the superheroes. They're the assets, right? The government's the NFL in this analogy, right? And the superheroes are like the players. And if you care that much about protecting your asset, if you care that much about making money, wouldn't you protect the players? Wouldn't you protect your assets? I mean, even like for anything, you don't even have to be like that great of a human being to know it doesn't help your bottom line if you have your stars getting hurt. It's not even a really like. I mean, I don't like it. For the human side of it, I don't like seeing these guys get hurt. But even if you're not going to look at it that way, even if you're not that good of a person and you're just trying to look at it from how it affects your bottom line, like having like if Tom Brady goes down tomorrow and Stafford goes down and Joe Burrow went down and Justin Herbert, I'm not saying it's very likely all of them would go down the same day, but if they were all out for the year, that's a huge hit on your product. That's a huge hit. I mean, like injuries are bad for football. They're bad for any sport. But football, you only have 17 games in a regular season. And it's like, how many more injuries, how many more torn ACLs, how many more fake apologies and rants about player safety have to be out there until you finally take action and just get rid of the goddamn turf? Because it's not good for anybody. I mean, I don't like the Niners, but I never wish injuries on the Niners. Niners had all those injuries when they came to MetLife.
Mm-hmm.
It's unacceptable. They got to get rid of it. Oh, it takes a lot to maintain. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what else takes a lot to maintain? A regular football field in general with turf. Takes a lot to maintain all the. Do you not what goes into just painting turf? I mean, if you're already doing that, how could you argue, well, it takes a lot to maintain grass? Like, it takes a lot to maintain anything. You're running a league. You're running a business. And you make all that money. There's no excuse. Don't cut corners.
Yeah.
Because, like, one of these days you're going to have Patrick Mahomes go down, somebody like that, Josh Allen, and the league is going to lose its value the moment that happens. Not saying people won't watch it, but you don't want to have to see a season where both Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are out. You don't want to have to see a season where all 4 starting quarterbacks in a division are out because of stupid turf. The game is dangerous. Guys are going to get hurt regardless. But why not at least minimize, if you could do a little bit, just a little bit, and try to minimize how often these guys are hurt. I mean, looking back at the Super Bowl, I mean, OBJ tearing his ACL. Would that have happened on grass?
No.
I don't think so. Because grass gives, It's a serious problem. I mean, the Bosa injury, it's becoming a really big issue. I know Saquon had the issue too, because when he tried to cut, he got stuck, and then his knee went backwards or whatever. Todd Gurley at Georgia. I mean, I hate turf. I could go on and on and on about why turf doesn't make any sense, why it literally is hurting your sport. It's hurting everything you're doing. You're trying to save money, but in turn it hurts your pocketbook essentially. But I mean, it's like I don't know, man. I hate it for Becton, but get rid of turf. Just get rid of it. I don't care how you do it. Just end it.
Yeah.
Light it all on fire.
I agree. And what's weird, though? I'll get to some comments after I say what I got to say. J.C. Treader came out last year and was basically like, no preseason. They shouldn't have a preseason. How come they didn't do that with turf? Like, how come they didn't say, look, turf is bad. Got to get rid of it. Like, they didn't have a strong argument for that, but they had a strong argument for, okay, no preseason. Okay. All right. You want to play like that? All right. Good.
That's what happened in 2020.
Yeah. Free agent now. Of course, Joe being ironic, but you think Joe is bad here? He's
By the way, the no preseason makes no sense. How are these guys that never get any opportunity in the regular season A league that has the worst. Look, the young quarterback ecosystem is basically dead. So you're telling me that you want to get rid of preseason where these guys have just a little bit of an opportunity to put film out there in front of the rest of the league. And you're telling me you want to get rid of that because of player safety. How about let's not get rid of preseason? We shouldn't have gotten rid of the fourth game.
Right.
Exactly.
Let's focus on giving these guys more opportunities so we don't only have to have the USFL to get these guys second chances. It's not always the guy's fault. There's this misconception that these guys don't work hard enough, and that's why they don't, get as high as they are. And there is some truth to that. There are some guys that were in the USFL that simply don't work hard enough, and that is why they were in the USFL despite having the skills that they have. But there are other guys like Kyle Sloter, that bounced around the NFL. They've never gotten an opportunity. They didn't happen to just luck out and be on the Giants when, even Jake Fromm was getting an opportunity. They didn't happen to luck out and, be on the Jaguars with Jake Luton. Like, these guys exist all around the league. And it's like, now you want to take away preseason, their opportunity to put film out there. How the hell are you going to have any sort of development? I mean, you practice. I mean, I understand coaches get practice tapes. Okay, that happens. But it's not the same as live bullets, folks. And there are guys that practice horribly. Okay, they're not good practice players, and they're elite players on the field. That's just the way it is. So if you're going to make it all, it should just be practice. That's why having those hyperbolic, black or white statements are stupid. Because JC Treader's saying just get rid of preseason. No. Why would you get rid of preseason? That doesn't solve anything. We're still playing on turf, which we know contributes to injuries, and more so contributes to injuries that aren't just, they'll be back next week. Like injuries that sideline you for the season. Preseason isn't a big issue. Just don't trot out your starters. Like Sean McVay doesn't play his starters. That's been his thing. And he got a lot of flack for doing that, but he went to a Super Bowl the first year he started in 2018. And he won a Super Bowl this year and didn't play his starters. Just be that. Don't play your starters. But don't complain that preseason's not bad. The only thing that's bad is that the NFL charges people the same amount for regular games as they do for preseason games. That's not fair because the quality that you're watching is not the same. But to ban preseason is absolutely stupid. Yeah, get rid of turf. Don't ban preseason. There's so many other things that you can take. Now, a thing I want to bring up is Saleh claiming that the Guardian caps that are being used in practice are bringing up, essentially, he's noticing bad habits with the way guys are using their helmets. Because it makes sense, because it's not, you have the cap. And he thinks it's going to lead into the NFL season. It's going to create bad habits for these players. And I think that's something to be discussed. Because initially, the Guardian caps, and I mean, guys get concussions in practice, but really the Guardian caps were for the trench guys in the offensive line, the guys in the defensive line. I think it's a little ridiculous that a running back has, the Guardian cap, because I mean, when he goes through there, you have guys punching him in the head. Do you have guys trying to tackle him? No, not really in practice. Maybe they're hugging him around the waist or something, but they're not trying to bring him to the ground, not trying to kill the guy. The point of it actually, and the reason that actually the Rams started using it is because Jared Goff suffered a thumb injury. When he was throwing the follow-through, the thumb hit the helmet. So it made sense. If you have the Guardian cap on, it cushions the blow of if you do throw and on your follow-through, your hand isn't hitting just straight on metal, right?
Right.
But now it's like everybody's using them. And so Saleh's pointed out how people, like a lot of players, are, developing these bad habits because they have them on. And I think that's, it's like, once again, I don't hate the idea of making things safer, but it's like they look at the wrong things. Like you haven't gotten rid of turf, but now you're going to make all these players wear this. I don't know. I don't get it.
Neither do I. Jason, who we met at Giants Fan Fest, says that sucks. Injuries have always been the worst part of football. Preseason ones can crush seasons before they start. MetLife getting grass next year, they say. I will believe it when I see it. You never want to see injuries. I've done work on turfs. I've done videos on it. I've been saying this for 3 years. Same injury Victor Cruz suffered, and Becton, fat hippo. He just
I don't
has
like calling him that personally.
Well, not in this timing.
It's a false narrative.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but what was I going to say? Miz, I also met at a fan fest. Nice meeting him. Giants 19, Patriots 10. I have a prediction, but I'll leave that for later. And there's like a whole thing where Joe's being ironic about the whole Aaron Judge thing. Trust me, that's the opposite of the way he feels. Dallas can get it too. Oh, you're probably a Giants fan, cynical then. That makes a lot of sense. But keep your questions coming. I did lose some comments, of course, but keep your questions coming. Luca, if you want to go into maybe more of the Jets, if you would like.
I was going to say we could revert back to baseball. We still got some baseball things to cover across the entire MLB.
All right.
Then we could go football. We could do NFL training camp. So some headlines across the week. Jacob deGrom made his Citi Field debut this season. It was lights out against the Braves, going 5 2/3 innings and striking out 12. The Mets now have a 6.5 game lead in the NL East, so they're on their hot run, as Jake mentioned. Dan Vogelback continues to be a key piece of the offense. He already has an RBI tonight. And who is the better team right now, the Mets or the Yankees? I know we would all want to say Yankees, but I think it would be a fun little debate since we're after the deadline. We can draw some comparisons.
I mean, right now the Mets are the better team. I mean, they're the hotter team essentially.
Right.
But I do think having Stanton and Rizzo back in that lineup is going to be astronomical for them because, I mean, Rizzo homered in 4 straight games and then hasn't played since.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm hoping they don't lose that hot streak from him because he was on like another level of a hot streak and then he gets hurt in the middle of it. And I mean, Stanton needed the time off because he I don't know why he was playing the All-Star game with that Achilles thing, but hopefully he'll be back soon. I wouldn't rush him though. I would just be focusing on just make sure he's there in the postseason and we'll figure it out. But they do miss Stan. I think they miss Rizzo the most though, because it goes back to what Donald was saying. When you have LeMahieu and then Judge, and then who's coming after Judge? It's like you can do Carpenter, but on the days you don't have Carpenter playing, like you need Rizzo in there. Rizzo operates well after Judge. If Judge doesn't have anybody after him, then you're just going to walk Judge every time. Like you're going to want to face, Donaldson. You're going to want to face, Torres, who at one point looked like he was getting closer to 300 hitter. And now all of a sudden he's getting closer to, a sub 250 hitter. You're going to want to face guys like that. I mean, that's the thing. So, I think they definitely at least need Rizzo back because, I just wish they would have put him on IL. I know I already said it, but it seems like kind of pointless at this point to like, they didn't put him on IL. They didn't call up anybody. Like, I don't know. It just seems like a guy that's just like he's on the roster. He's still listed in that scorecard on Yes when they're like, all right, here are the guys that are remaining to pinch hit and pinch run. So he's there. And then every time, like, Michael Cass be like, yeah, but we know Rizzo isn't actually available. It's like, why is he like not on the IL? Like,
right.
I mean, I just feel like that's, yeah. I mean, if he's not healthy and his back flared up and his back flares up all the time, go back to Chicago. He's always had an issue with his back. He'll be fine, by October. But if that's the case, then you have to, just give him 10 days. Just put him on the IL for 10 days and then call up somebody. And for those people that are like, yeah, but if they call up Florial, he doesn't have any more options. Okay, then why is, like, explain this to me. Why wouldn't you bring down LeCastro? Why is LeCastro there and not Florial in the first place? Except for the fact that maybe, okay, like you want to get Florial reps, but I think he's got plenty of reps. I think he's ready to come up. And if you're arguing, well, we have Aaron Hicks, well, I'd rather have Florio playing in the lineup every day than Aaron Hicks.
All right. One thing I could say about the Mets' clear advantage over the Yankees is the starting pitching. You cannot match a healthy DeGrom-Scherzer duo.
Back.
He was amazing yesterday, as I pointed out. They also got Carrasco. They got I think McGill is going to be coming back soon. So I like their rotation.
Dude, they got from the A's. Don't forget that.
Chris Bassett's had been phenomenal tonight. He's striking out 8 against the Reds. But I think the Yankees – absolutely. I do think the Yankees have advantage in the bullpen. Although Edwin Diaz, everybody's debating, does Edwin Diaz have the better season or is it Clay Holmes?
At Diaz.
Diaz now. I think at one point Clay Holmes was there, and he hasn't been the same since the Mets series. So, but I mean, again, it's Donald said they overused him. They worked
Right.
him way too hard, and they did what I don't know why Torrey would do this, or even Girardi, but it's like Mariano Rivera and any closer wants to come into a situation with a lead. They want the pressure on them to protect the lead. When you put them in a game where they're losing or a game where they're tied, all that goes out the window. And it's like, I think my biggest issue with the Yankees bullpen is they don't have a Tom Gordon duo. We don't have a go-to eighth inning guy. I feel like they're hoping that Zach Britton is going to come back and be that guy. And I feel like they just like pitching Chapman in the sixth just because, it's just worked for him. But really, if you're doing you're watching the games, if you're doing the research, Marinaccio is their eighth inning guy. And he's not even on the team right now. So, I think the Mets, they have the better closer right now in Diaz, and I think they have the better rotation. I mean, the Yankees don't even get 8 innings out of their starters because Boone wants to.
And they have the better manager, too. Let's not forget Buck
Showalter. Buck Showalter should have 5 World Series. I mean, let's be honest here. He helped build that dynasty. Doesn't get any credit. And then the thing that actually bothers me the most is that he went to the Diamondbacks, and then they fire him right before they win. So it was like, so the Diamondbacks, so Yankee fans couldn't even take solace in knowing, okay, they lost to the Diamondbacks, but Buck Showalter got his ring. Nope, Showalter wasn't even on the team then.
He's been
so unlucky.
Buck will never be outmanaged in a series. Never.
Yeah, it's like Showalter is with a certain team before they actually become successful, and then he never gets that credit because he was never that successful. The pinnacle of the Diamondbacks, run was the 2001 World Series. He was not a part of that. That was Bob Brenly managing the team. Yankees in 96, 98, 99, 2000. That was Joe Torre, not him. Even though he built up that foundation with Stick Michael and Bob Watson, he will never get that credit. I always liked Buck. And he gets flack. The weirdest thing, I was arguing with Met fans in the offseason who were unhappy about Showalter being hired. They're like, oh, he lost 100 and something games with the Orioles. Do you know what direction they were taking? They were tanking.
Exactly, they were tanking.
You can't always look at the manager.
I know.
You look at the talent.
It wasn't this Orioles team.
Exactly.
This Orioles team doesn't want to tank. They want to win. You could tell every night.
Exactly.
But, that's also what happens when you call up a guy like Adley Rutschman and you don't have him sitting. I mean, if Adley was in the Yankees farm system, he would not be in the majors right now. No. He would still be in AAA.
So you have that. Now, if you want to break down individual positions between the Yankees and Mets, first of all, I'm going to say catcher outright is the Yankees. Trevino leads the way. The Mets, I don't know how the Mets can avoid the catching, how they completely avoided the catching position at the deadline. Contreras was there and available.
That was surprising.
Yeah, that's a big win for us.
Definitely. So first base, I think Alonso is the better player, although I do like my Rizzo. So you can put Alonso at first. Second base, you have, I think it's McNeil now and Gleyber Torres.
Yeah, McNeil is probably the better player right now. I think Torres has the higher ceiling.
Right.
And at Torres' best, he's better than McNeil, but McNeil's hitting 300. McNeil gets on base. McNeil's not in the middle of a god-awful lost at the plate slump.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, yeah.
I would go with McNeil.
Shortstop is not even a question.
Francisco Lindor, even though
you have to drug test anyone who thinks IKF over Lindor.
Oh my god,
Lindor is way overpaid, but he's still 100 times better than IKF. 100.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I think Lindor's gotten pretty overrated, but he's still a lot better than IKF.
Oh yeah, not even questionable. Third base.
Eduardo Escobar versus Josh Donaldson. Escobar has sucked this year. So
Josh Donaldson, DJ LeMahieu, and Marwin Gonzalez, I would take over. I think Escobar.
That's fair. That is fair. I'm actually going to go with you on that.
I'm actually tired of Mets fans Escobar. What about him? He bats .219. He has a .665 OPS. So he's got 12 home runs. Congrats. He's awful. And he's not even that good of a defensive third baseman. I mean,
should we make LeMahieu our third baseman?
Yeah, you can make LeMahieu. You could also say LeMahieu's probably the most versatile infielder out of all the infielders I just mentioned. So if you want to debate him versus McNeil, I think I'd say LeMahieu at his peak is better than Jeff McNeil. But if you're actually comparing McNeil versus Torres, I'd say McNeil. Now, if you say third base with LeMahieu, I say LeMahieu. So left field,
I say LeMahieu.
Right. Let's see. Catcher I went over. Left field. You could either say Canna or Naquin versus Benintendi. I'm going Andrew Benintendi at his peak.
Benintendi all day.
Easily.
Yeah.
If it was Joey Gallo, then I'd take Kanye, but
because
it's Benintendi then.
Center field, Aaron Hicks or Brandon Nimmo? I'm going to go with Brandon Nimmo.
What about Marte?
Yeah.
Marte's right field, so you'd be taking Judge over him. So I guess we can end that
I'll take
off.
Judge over Nimmo in center.
All right, that's fair.
Me too.
You
Because Judge is actually listed on ESPN as a center fielder now. He's played there so much, he's considered a center fielder.
Yeah, then you could, when Stanton comes back, you get him in right field. Now, DH, you could say Carpenter or Stanton versus Vogelbach. Now, I like Vogelbach, but I'm going to go say Stanton and Carpenter have the higher ceiling and what they're at.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think, Vogelbach definitely, I see why they got him. But, I mean, he's not doing anything anywhere near is what Carpenter did. Carpenter already has like 14, 15 home runs on a year. Vogelbach has 14 right now. Carpenter's batting over 300. Vogelbach's batting 239. The OPS is good, but we were talking about like Carpenter on the level of like his OPS was on the level of like Barry Bonds. So, I'll take Carpenter.
All right, so we're done with that. Now we're going to highlight every trade at the deadline and see who the winners and losers were. So, first trade, the biggie. The Padres acquire. Go ahead.
Luca and Alex, shouldn't you guys give your opinions on who would win between the Mets and the Yankees?
I say the Yankees. Yankees have the better bullpen. The Mets have the better starting rotation. But at their peak, in terms of, I'm going to say the Yankees.
Yankees very slightly.
But I do buy into the Mets that are a good team. So
I think the Mets are the better
balance
unit.
lineup.
They're the better unit. I think they're better managed. I think that in general, I like their matchups better, especially starting rotation. But if it came to a World Series, I would take the Yankees just because the Yankees have that.
Yeah, that
27 World Championships, and the Mets are a complete joke. So if it came to a World Series, I'm taking the Yankees. But in every other scenario, regular season, the Mets are better.
Yeah,
as they've proven by sweeping us.
And I think the Yankees probably have more World Series winners on that team. You obviously have Rizzo, which is the main factor. So with that, I say Yankees. We're going to go into every trade deadline deal, break it down, and say who the winners and losers are. So the Padres traded for Juan Soto and Josh Bell, although they were swept by the Dodgers this past weekend. They acquired Josh Bell, Juan Soto, for Luke Voigt, Mackenzie Gore, C.J. Abrams, Robert Hassel, James Wood, and Jordan Susana. I'm going to go with the Padres, obviously.
I don't know what the Nationals were doing. They did not get enough for him, in my opinion. They didn't get enough for him to be included with Josh Bell. I mean, Yankee fans were probably, loving it because he didn't go to Houston. I think Josh Bell in Houston would have been horrifying, but I don't know what they were thinking because, I mean, I like Mackenzie Gore, but he hasn't been amazing in the major leagues to justify them not having to. I mean, and then what I find funny, I almost feel like this just kind of justifies everything, is that the Nationals just aren't a good organization. They're trading away a 23-year-old phenom, and all the signs pointed to is that the Yankees were willing to include everyone in their farm system for this guy. And they did not value Volpe as a top flight guy. He was the 7th, according to MLB.com, 7th prospect in the bigs. I mean, that tells me more about the Nationals than it does anybody.
Right.
Getting this return, I mean, if this is the return, then I don't know, man. I feel for Voigt. I'm sure he thought he was going to be a part of that Padres team, and then they threw him at the last second.
Thank you, Eric Hosmer.
Yeah, because Hosmer, wouldn't. And then Hosmer went to the Red Sox, which was really confusing. But
I don't like the return. I think it was a complete steal for the Padres.
Alex, any thoughts on the Nationals Padres trade? Obviously, Juan Soto.
I'm just on the consensus that the Nationals should have gotten more. I mean,
A lot more.
an MLB ready player, and that's what, Luke Voigt? I mean, they could have given up solely more either in the system or proven player, but the Nationals will be the Nationals. Hopefully for them in a few years they're good, but I can't necessarily
No,
tell.
because they
Every
have
time
to
you-
pay $35 million to an 8 ERA Patrick Corbin for the next 5 years, and then the Strasburg deal is the worst thing in human history. So they have those two guys. They're done for a while. I don't see them contending for maybe another half decade.
Right.
Next one, our trade. Yankees trade Joey Gallo for Clayton Beater.
I'm just
I
glad they
think
got
the
a
Yankees.
prop.
I think the Yankees win solely based off of trading Joey Gallo.
I agree, but getting who's now in our top 10 in our system in
Yeah,
return
you
is
fortify
actually
the pitching.
a lot more than I would have anticipated we would have gone. I think it's actually a win for. I think it's a win for both teams. Actually, I think he will be better in LA. I think he's better outside the culture in New York. Obviously, his numbers for LA are a joke, so he's not off to a great start. But I think he'll be better off in another situation. So the Dodgers might get something from him, but the Yankees got a really good return, considering he was the worst player in baseball this year. I think they did pretty well.
My question is, they traded Joey Gallo. I thought he was going to be going to a small market like Philly or KC, all these smaller markets, Brewers, Rangers, whoever. I'm surprised they traded him to as big as a market as LA. But Alex, what are your thoughts?
Well, he needed the change of scenery. Was LA necessarily the outlet? Not ideally, but I guess he's not going to make them better. He's not going to make them any worse. And I just like that Brian Cashman snagged in, whether it's a 20th ranked or 10th ranked, whatever, prospect in there. That for Joey Gallo, I mean, it doesn't necessarily wipe my mind of all the horrific memories, but it makes it just makes it slightly better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Red Sox acquire Eric Hosmer, 2 prospects and cash from the Padres for Jay Group, left-handed pitcher.
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't get the fam trade. Just doesn't make any sense. Like, what are you doing?
You got to know your place at the deadline. You can't be caught as I'm towing the line between seller and buyer. I mean, if you're like the Yankees and you do that, you're still getting something for them, but you're also in competition. I mean, the Red Sox, this team isn't going anywhere. They're 16 and a half games out of first place. They're 54 and 56. They've only gotten worse. I don't see it. When they had that jolt of energy and they won 8 straight, I was like, okay, maybe the Red Sox are good. Maybe that just took them a little bit. No, that is past. It's done. Honestly, here's what doesn't make sense.
Right.
They were buyers and sellers, because if you wanted to argue, okay, we're going to be buyers here, but they trade away Vasquez. That was confusing. And then the Giants, they don't trade away Rodon, and they don't even trade away what's his face, Jock, and they're 53 and 55. They're 22 games out of first place, and they have no chance. I mean, I don't know what we're doing. It's it's bizarre to me. Some of the decisions these teams made. Honestly, I thought the Orioles made a bad decision trading away Mancini.
Me too.
That guy is one of the clubhouse guys. I wouldn't have traded him away. Wouldn't have shaken anything up.
We'll probably be getting to that, but yeah, I agree with that.
But it's just doing those trades. It's you have to know your place. And the Red Sox, I mean, they're literally below 500 at home. That's how you know. That's a telltale sign.
Worst record amongst division rivals.
I mean, they're not good this year. And trading for Hosmer made literally 0 sense.
You can't half-ass both things. You can only whole-ass one thing. You can't try and do both.
Yeah. They essentially did an about-face. So the next trade on the list, the Phillies acquiring Noah Syndergaard for Mickey Moniak and Jadel Sanchez. I think it's a win for the Phillies. Mickey Moniak kind of flopped as I remember when he was a big prospect. I think he needed the scenery.
I like that. I like that deal for the Phillies. I think Snow will deal for them.
Yeah,
Big
plus
win
they're
for
kind
Thor. I
plus
mean,
they're
yeah.
plus they're right back in the playoff race. They're getting really close, if not already in the playoff, in the wild card exactly. So, next trade, the Twins acquire Tyler Mahle from the Reds for 3 prospects. Win Twins.
I mean, I I think it's a win for Cincinnati because they get 3
Okay.
prospects for a guy who's like a bottom of the rotation type of guy, in my opinion. I mean, Molly's okay, but I think obviously the Twins have this kind of sense of belief that they can compete. I look at their 57-51 record, and I just think, I mean, this team's barely, in the plus, run differential. They're not competing with the Yankees. They're not competing with the Astros. I mean, they're not competing with Seattle at this point. I don't think they'll beat Seattle when they're fully healthy. So the Twins, they're trying to win the division. They're trying to give people something to, feel good about. But I mean, the White Sox, they're winning games. The Guardians have won 2 straight. They're now a game behind. I can see what they're doing, but I just felt like they gave up too much for a guy that just doesn't really like. It would have made more sense if they went out and got Syndergaard, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So, but they
I would
gave
give
up.
a victory for the Twins, so I think that was actually a good deal. I think Mally's a decent pickup for them. And you know what? If you're going to criticize the Orioles for getting rid of Mancini, you got to give credit to the
Lopez.
Twins for trying to.
I was going to say you should criticize them for Lopez too.
Right.
One of the
Well, you got to give credit to the Twins for at least trying to be competitive.
Right.
I do. I think it's more so who they went out and got. Like, I thought they could have gotten more, But if I guess it makes sense if they're just trying to win their division, because it doesn't feel like that's not like a hey, we're trying to win a World Series type of move. That's like, hey, we're just trying to hold off the Guardians and White Sox and call ourselves a division winner.
Right. What they gave up was their seventh prospect, their 18th, and their 23rd. So 3 prospects in exchange for Tyler Mahle. Braves acquire Raisel Iglesias from the Angels for Jesse Chavez, veteran pitcher, and Tucker Davidson. Thoughts on this?
I like it. I like Raisel Iglesias. He's hitting the cover off the ball. Big contact hitter. I've always liked him, so I think it's a win for the Braves.
You're thinking of Jose Iglesias.
Raisel Iglesias, the big reliever from the Angels.
Oh, I was thinking Jose.
You had me questioning everything that I was like, wait a minute, he's a hitter?
4 years, $58 million in the offseason, but the Angels trade him away.
Oh.
The Angels don't know what they're doing, clearly. I mean, they gave $20 million to Thor, and they just traded him away. I guess they paid $20 million for 2 prospects who aren't that great. So, I don't know. The Braves, this is a good move for them. I would have liked to see them make more of an attempt at the division. I think really that was the last chance against the Mets. They're a team that, we're just going to have to wait and see when Ozzy Albies comes back. Is that going to be enough? Because, I think if they really wanted to win the division, they need to win at least 2 of the. They need to win the series against the Mets that they just played.
Jason says, why the fuck couldn't we get Raisel? Is my thoughts. Jason's an Orioles fan, right, Alex?
I don't know. I think he might. No, I don't think so. I think he's a Yankees fan.
Okay. Oh,
I might be wrong, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a Yankees fan.
Interesting. So we'll let him comment on that. This was a mind-boggling trade because of the whole situation. The Blue Jays acquire Whit Merrifield from the Royals for Samad Taylor and Max Castillo.
Yeah, that was weird because they got him knowing that. I mean, it was never guaranteed he was going to get the vaccine, and at that moment, he's not even allowed in their country.
Yeah, that's why it's mind-boggling. Plus, they kind of trade for him 3 years too late. Meaning the Royals, that's the Royals' fault. They had 0 leverage. They traded him. They could have gotten a big haul 3 years ago, and he's had a decent season, but not prime Merrifield from like 2-3 years ago. So that's what I say on that. Donald, any thoughts? Alex, any thoughts?
I'm upset about that. If I was a Royals fan, I'd be upset because Merrifield's a legend for the Royals. He's been there every single year, day in, day out. Plays 162 games. he's basically the Royals. I think is a kind of a bad look. If you wanted to trade him for maximum value, you could have done it a couple of years ago.
Right.
But if you're at this stage, you might as well just keep him. At least give the Royals fans something.
Exactly.
He's got a negative wins above replacement this year. So the fact that the Royals were able to get something for him at 33 years old, I think the Royals win.
Jason, I deeply apologize. If you don't know I'm a Yankees fan, you don't know nothing. But anyways, I think the Yankees could have got Rizal. What was it? Jesse Chavez, a prospect. I think that would have been like, in Yankee terms, Lidke and a BCC prospect. So I understand where you're coming from. Now, obviously, one of our trades, Cardinals acquire Jordan Montgomery from the Yankees for Harrison Bader and a player to be named later or cash. So whoever wants to take the panel first.
Trading Monty, okay. Not getting another starter eventually. No. What was I gonna say? Getting Bader, yes. Him on the IL, no. That's probably the most questionable Cashman trade of the deadline, if you ask me. I mean, Bader's a good player, but at the same time, plantar fasciitis. So it's a weird injury, and at the same time, like, I'm looking to win now. I'm looking to win right now. I'm not saying Bader doesn't do that for you. What I am saying is you could have called up Florial and maybe had some similar production. Not that he is Bader, but similar. So those are my thoughts.
Could do that too. I mean,
Right.
I feel like this was him like just really trying to put the pressure on Hicks, because it was just like, Hicks, man, you aren't doing it. You're not enough. Don't think that we aren't watching. Don't think Joey Gallo got you off the hook. By the way, the Yankees are up 2-0. Donaldson just knocked in LeMahieu and Judge. So
Let me faint.
yeah, Donaldson stepping up in the first inning, but that's important. You gotta get going against Gilbert early on, get him rattled. They did that the first time they faced him. But yeah, I think I agree with you, because my biggest issue with trading Monty it had nothing to do about him. I mean, obviously there are issues about trading away a guy that's that consistent, but it had nothing to do about that. My biggest issue was, how is this going to affect a team that has 70 wins? Like, you're taking this guy out of your clubhouse. You're taking a 2014 4th-round pick by your organization out of the organization. Like, how does that look? And I mean, JMO pitched that day, and he looked like rattled, and he talked about it, like saying how he was really not happy about that move. And I just think, like, if it's not broke, like, don't fix it. And I'm not saying don't make a deadline move, but I was saying make the Montas move on top of keeping Monty. That makes sense. I was under the impression they moved Monty because they're getting Lopez. When they didn't get Lopez, and that didn't come down to the wire, I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. And they almost break even. I understand, Montas is better, but it's almost like they break even. And if you were going to trade anyone, you wouldn't have traded the guy that you had years of control under, and not a ton of years, but you had another year or so. You would have traded Tyone.
Right.
So, it doesn't really make a lot of sense they kept Tyone. I think really what it was is because Tyone has a strikeout pitch, and Montgomery was having a hard time really putting guys away. Like the Mets, I think the Mets series opened up, like, everyone, even the Yankees, like, it put him under a microscope, because they saw he could not get whiffs. He could not get those strikeouts, and it really hurt him. So I do think that was part of the thing. Can you envision this guy pitching in the postseason, getting those tough outs? And they looked at the Mets series, and they're like, but even though, I mean, this guy, 21 starts, he only had 3 games in which he gave up at least 3 runs or more. I mean, that's a guy you're going to miss, and he's, from the way it sounded, the clubhouse loved him. So moving a guy like that, even moving a guy like Joey Gallo, anytime you move guys from your clubhouse, I think we the fans, it's really easy for us to not see how that could impact, because, we're not in the clubhouse. we see the results in the field. But if you think about it in human nature and the way like chemistry works, you could easily see how things are going really well, and then you start moving around pieces, and some guys don't fit. Well, you've already spent future assets on these guys, so you better make them fit, type deal. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's definitely a questionable move. I really like Bader, and I think he's somebody that's going to be even better with the Yankees. I just have a feeling like he just feels like somebody like he's like what Hicks was supposed to be when they traded for him. Like he had that one really good year or whatever. And I mean, really good. It was good and people overrate it. But I think Bader is above 250 hitter with the Yankees. He's the best defensive center fielder in the game when healthy. And they wouldn't have traded for him if they didn't truly believe he would play this year. I think that's...
And he's going to be the center fielder next year.
Exactly. So... But I don't disagree with your guys' points on bringing up Florial. Like, I don't necessarily love trading for those guys, and I'm also not a big fan because the deadline, the point of it is buyers sell the future to get the present, whereas sellers sell the present to buy the future. And when you start selling guys that are on your team, like I didn't like Cashman's example of that, like saying sometimes you have to give up good stuff to get, It's like, no. Montgomery's part of the 70-win team. Montgomery's part of this. It's like that was my biggest holdup with the whole Soto deal. Because when people are like, the Yankees are going to have to give up Cortez, and I'm like, no. Cortez is part of this. We're trying to add Soto on top of this if they get Soto. I'm not a fan of subtracting a guy that is a key contributor, and he's part of the system, to go out and get a guy who might be a little bit better on the system. I think you want to add him on. That's the whole point of the deadline. If you're trading prospects, you're trying to add these guys on. You're trying to upgrade your current roster.
Well, I mean, it is Cashman's job to upgrade, and he upgraded the rotation. And at the end of the day, there was no role for Montgomery in October. Where was he going to pitch? He's not going to pitch in the postseason. You've already got the 3 slots sorted out: Montas, Cole, Cortez. 4th starters most likely going to be Severino, but even if Severino goes in the bullpen, you can put time on there. Or what about Clark Schmidt? Clark Schmidt is going to be in the bullpen as well. Clark Schmidt, I assume, is going to be called up. Clark Schmidt is better than Montgomery every day of the week. Much better stuff. He's got an out pitch. Montgomery doesn't have an out pitch. I just don't think that there's a big difference between Montgomery and Herman. Obviously, Montgomery's a much better person, but pitching-wise, they're pretty much the same. Montgomery, you can never trust to keep a lead. I just didn't think Montgomery's stuff is very, very good. So if you look at it, you get a Gold Glove center fielder for an average 5th starter. I think that's a win. The only thing that I agree with is what you said there, Alex, is you're trading away a starting pitcher who's reliable, pitches every 5 days without getting hurt, for someone who's got a plantar fasciitis issue. That is the value doesn't feel equitable to me. Like if it was Bader plus like a reliever, Bader plus a prospect, a decent prospect for Montgomery, then yeah, I'm on board. But just an injured Bader for Montgomery feels like it's a win for the other, for the Cards there. But if Bader steps up in October and then most likely next season, then I still like this deal.
Fair enough there. So we'll move on to the next trade. The Phillies acquired David Robertson from the Cubs for right-handed pitcher Ben Brown. Brown was the Philadelphia Phillies' number 26 prospect.
Get another solid reliever. He was with them before, though.
Yeah, he was.
Robertson's having a monster season. The Yankees were almost they were in on potentially bringing him back for a 3rd reunion.
Yeah, I like him.
I mean, the Phillies just got to keep rebuilding that pen. That's been the story the last couple of years, how bad their pen's been. Harris, all these different guys. Next one, the Twins acquire Michael Fulmer from the Tigers for right-handed pitcher Sawyer Gibson-Long.
Why would you fucking trade in division?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. But I do like that they got Fulmer.
Yeah, definitely. See, the thing is with the Tigers, they're another about face team because they went out and spent all this money on Javi and spent out this money in Eduardo Rodriguez, and then they just pivot to trade at the deadline. That's how mediocre they are. That's how mediocre teams work. Donald, your thoughts?
I agree.
All right, next trade. The Padres acquire Brandon Drury from the Cincinnati Reds for shortstop Victor Acosta.
One of the best trades I've seen throughout this deadline because Drury is exactly who you get at the deadline. It's exactly who you sell. So I actually like, this was really good on both sides. Cincinnati gets something for him. Keep in mind, this guy didn't even hit 200 with the Yankees. And then he goes to Toronto. He wasn't that great. So this is like his career year. This is the time. His value's never been higher. Get something for him. You're not competing. Whereas the Padres are like, this guy can really fill a void here where now all of a sudden you got Profar in the lead hole. You got, Machado. You have Bell. You have Soto. You go out and get Drury. You have Cronenworth. I mean, that is nasty. At the top of that, that is why, like, when people are saying this is like, a stacked team. By the way, Haniger just hit a home run, unfortunately. When people are saying this is like a stacked team, they're a super team. I don't like the word super team. I think it's stupid, but this is what they're talking about. Going out and getting Drury, and it didn't cost him a ton. I really like the move.
All right. Anybody else in the panel have any thoughts?
All salient points.
All right. So
that's really annoying that Haniger hit that home run, man.
I also
Tyone just went over 4 ERA for the year.
Of course. But I don't know. I just feel like for the Padres deadline, they did a good job. It's just that it's not going to equate to anything.
You don't think it's going to work? You don't think it's going to? There's a certain word I'm looking for. You don't think it's going to pay off?
No.
Well, keep in mind, Fernando Tatis is coming back. And if he is anything like he was last year, they are going to be a team I don't want to face in the postseason.
I would never, ever want to face them.
I mean,
they have is ridiculous.
They're 7 deep on that. Like, I'm not talking like, oh, yeah, these guys are good and, like, I'm overrating them. No. 7 deep. Like, they're 7 deep on their lineup.
Much better lineup than we have. Much better lineup than the Yankees have.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think even a fully healthy Yankees team, I mean, you talk about the youthful exuberance that they have, too, because they have a lot of the younger guys. But, I mean, Josh Bell's hitting for average this year, folks. He's batting over 300, Right now, their lineup is Profar, Soto, Machado, Bell, Drury. They have Kim at short for today. Then they have Cronenworth, they have Will Myers, and they have Alfaro. So one of those guys is going to be gone, and then they're going to put Fernando Tatis in there.
It's disgusting.
Blake Snell's starting to pitch well. No one's talking about it, but his last few outings have been really good after really struggling this year. He's done a nice job. The last 3 outings, he's only given up, 1 run? So, for the most part, I mean, he started to find his stride. He was really good against the Mets, which is exactly the type of game that you want from a guy like that. So, I look at the Padres, and I think it does make them scary. And on top of that, we talk about the lineup, but then, you got Musgrove, you got Darvish, you got Manaea, you got Snell, you got Clevenger. I mean, this team has everything now that they added Josh Hader, as their closer. I mean, what does this team not have? I mean, eventually you'd have to imagine this 61-50 team that is getting clowned on by Dodgers fans might be clowning Dodgers fans in the postseason because this is one of those teams that people will just like, okay, they'll make fun of. Things haven't all gotten together, but they're going to mesh. And when they do mesh, I think they can really be a problem. And it's not like buying a team too. I appreciate what they did because they did develop some of these guys and going out and getting like outcasts like Profar, they trading for Will Myers a few, seasons ago. I mean, I really like what they're doing. And I think the Hader deal was basically signaling that they're not just getting Soto for the long haul. They want to win immediately. Like they're going after it this year. And, I'm excited to see because, I mean, that division's terrible, to be honest with you. The Rockies are bad. The Diamondbacks are bad. The Giants are pretty much bad now. I mean, they're 22 games out. The Padres are 15 and a half games out of first place. So it's very easy for anybody, for that matter, to kind of just give up on them and just think, yeah, this team, they're not going to compete with the Dodgers. But it doesn't matter because all that matters is if they can jump the Phillies and Braves, get into that wild card spot, and they could be dangerous to anybody.
Of course.
Get this thing in. Next trade. The Mets trading for, let me see, pull it up right here. Darren Ruff from the Giants for J.D. Davis, Thomas Sapucki, Nick Zwack, and Carson Seymour. All are pitchers except Davis. I like this move for the Mets. Even though it's not a J.D. Martinez or a Josh Bell, I know there were some popular names out there like a Mancini too, but I like Ruff. He kills left-handed hitters. Vogelback kills right-handed hitters. They're kind of like, they complement each other really well.
I feel like it's what they were doing is they were adding guys that were like guys Showalter specifically requested for. It's why they didn't go out and get Soto and like try and push the Nationals. They probably would have had to pay a lot extra because it was the intra division, aspect of it. But when like their deadline, when you look at it on paper, really isn't that good. But when you look at the players, I don't know, it kind of feels like Scott Brocious-y to me. Like it's it's him going out and finding guys that are going to play the roles that he needs.
Exactly.
I feel like Showalter identified these certain guys and they went after them.
Is the Vogelback deal for me that's the winner for the Mets? I don't think they had a particularly good deadline, but the Vogelback deal is an absolute steal. I go to Pirates games. I've always liked him, so I felt that putting him in a scenario where he's going to help a contending team, you're going to see a really good player, and that's exactly what he is. So that's a really good pick.
I just thought the Mets could have done more.
Especially
I was talking
the bullpen.
I was talking to Christiana Tana about that on Friday.
Catcher and bullpen.
Yeah, catcher, bullpen.
They need a lefty. Chafin was perfect for them.
Yeah, but it's weird because like the Tigers, once again, they gave up what's his face? They gave up Fulmer, but they didn't give up Gregory Soto or Chafin, which really boggled my mind. But teams will do what teams will do.
Next trade: Twins acquire Jorge Lopez from the Orioles for Cade Povich, Juan Rojas, Yenyer Cano, and Juan Nunez. So a lot of young prospects for Jorge Lopez. In terms of direction, who wins this trade? Obviously, I think the Twins do, but it hurts the Orioles a little bit. But the Orioles are kind of maintaining their run so far. So.
Yeah, I didn't like this for the Orioles. Definitely think the Twins win this because we were just talking about them. Donald brought it up. Like, this is a team that's trying to compete. Like I said, they're trying to compete for the division. I don't think they have like World Series aspirations. It's not to say that not every team isn't trying to win a World Series that is in the playoffs, but I don't feel like they're just going for it, right? They're trying to maintain, winning the division. And I think this does that. It gives you, a really good closer. They're in a lot of close games, man. I feel like this team, every time I look up, it's Gio Urshela rescuing them in extra innings. I mean, they're in a lot of close games, so going out and getting a really good closer makes a lot of sense for them.
All right. Anybody else thoughts on that trade?
Oh, yeah. I completely agree there. It's a total win for the Twins. Don't like the look there for the Orioles.
Braves acquire Jake Odorizzi from the Astros for Will Smith. I can see this is a win for both sides. The Braves needed to fortify the rotation a little bit, and the Astros get a nice arm for the pen.
I like it for both sides as well. I think it was definitely a fair deal. I know Will Smith is another guy some Yankee fans threw out there. But, yeah, I like it.
Anybody else with some thoughts?
Yeah, win for both teams, in my opinion.
All right. The Red Sox acquire Reese McGuire from the White Sox for Jake Diekman. I don't know why you're trading one of your more important arms. But
another in-division trade that I didn't... Actually, no, that was the White Sox. Never mind, but...
No, it's a intra-sock trade.
Yeah, yes, intra-Sox trade. Why? Like, they gave up Vasquez... The Red Sox direction just boggles my mind.
They were just that kid in fantasy football that gets bored. Like, if you're in like a league where it's a bunch of adults and you have that one kid who's still in like high school or something, and he's just bored. So like he just makes trades all day. And it's just like what are you doing? Like, do you have any directions? Like, no, I just got bored. It's like you just traded you're like half your team away. Yeah, I just got bored. That's what the Red Sox did. They're like, oh, the Yankees are competing in the deadline. So I got to join in too. And it's like that's what they did. I mean, they had no direction, they had no plan.
Right. So this one was another big trade. I'm going to headline a few more before we get out. Padres acquired Josh Hader from the Brewers for Taylor Rogers, Dinelson Lamet, Robert Gasser, and Astoria Ruiz. I think wasn't Lamet DFA'd or something like that? He was. So who wins the Padres Brewers trade?
Padres.
100% of the Padres.
Yeah, I agree.
I felt it was weird. I understand why, but I felt like it was weird that the Brewers would trade him away. The Brewers are still in this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And they were way more in this thing. They were actually leading the division when they traded him away. And I remember seeing it was Devin Williams, who's probably going to take over as the closer if he hasn't already by now. And they were interviewing him, and he's like, man, I don't even know what to say. Because it's like, it takes the wind out of a clubhouse like that. I mean, I agree with Devin Williams. I mean, essentially, you just traded away this guy in the midst of us leading the division. Where are we? This guy's unhittable. Like, what is the deal here? What is the direction here? Do you believe in this team? And I mean, I think it causes a stir in the clubhouse, and I think that's what happened. And, since, the Brewers are 4-6 over the last 10, and the Cardinals are 9-1. They've won 7 straight. So it's a masterclass on how to blow up your team at the deadline. A lot of teams do it. They push the wrong buttons. Brewers are still in it, 1.5 games behind, but man, it's not good. It's not good enough. So, I think it's one of those things where the Padres are also, keep this in mind, you traded him to a team that's probably going to be the reason you don't make the playoffs. Think about that. The Padres are in the wild card race just as much as the Brewers are. I mean, I think it's definitely a Padres win. They gave up a lot to get him, but he was definitely worth it. I would have been curious to see if the Yankees would have done that because, I mean, if they knew what they knew now with Clay Holmes and like tiring him out, like, do they trust Clay Holmes down the stretch? I would have loved to see if they would have gotten Hader.
I don't think besides Chapman, I don't think we have a lefty power arm. We have Lidke, we have Peralta, but that's their off speed is their trigger for what's better.
I'd have dealt for the Pirates closer. I think that would have been a good
David. What do I keep forgetting his last name?
Bednar.
Bednar.
I mean, Zach Britton's a lefty, but you don't have him right now.
Exactly.
You'll have him at some point. There was a good injury update about him. I think he just started doing the simulated innings.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw something. I'll try to find it while you guys talk,
right.
but
right.
Bednar's stuff is electric. I think he would have been a good pickup. I think he would have been a really good closer for the Yankees.
Yeah, definitely.
Put Holmes in the 8th inning.
So 2 more trades before we get on out of here. The Mariners acquired Luis Castillo from the Reds for 4 prospects, including Novi Marte, Edwin Arroyo, 1 and 3 on the Mariner pipeline, with Levy Stout being number 5 and Andrew Moore just unranked. So 1, 3, and 5 prospects from the Mariners to the Reds, and obviously Luis Castillo, a very top-tier pitcher, heading to Seattle.
One for both sides.
I think it was worth it. They gotta do more than what they did in the first half, though. I mean, obviously we're playing them, but they got to turn it around a little bit more. They gotta make sure they have a wild card spot and make a deep playoff run, or else I don't know that it's worth it.
Yeah.
Anytime you trade for Luis Castillo, I think it's a W, because certainly the Yankees needed him, and I think if he faces the Yankees, he's going to crush them. because he's that freaking good and he's done it for the Reds and the Mariners already. So that's a good pickup, but then that's really expensive. Three of your top 5 prospects is too much. So I think it's a win for the other team too, but I'd still give it a win for both sides. But if they don't re-sign Castillo, then it's probably too much to give up.
All right, final trade of the night. The Mets acquired Dan Vogelback from the Pirates for Colin Holderman. Now, Holderman had a decent season so far. He was actually a rookie, and he was called up, and eventually he was just traded. So,
you know how I feel about this. Win for the Mets. I think it's a win for the Mets.
In the short term, I think it is a win for the Mets.
Agree.
So, things are going really well for Britton. He's doing simulated innings. Boone has been, keeping an eye on him. He's been doing really well in Tampa, so they feel really good. I would have to imagine he's back by October, but he could be back, mid-September. But another name that people probably forgot about, Miguel Castro. He's projected to come back from the 60-day injured list in a few weeks, so they're going to get bullpen reinforcements. The problem I have with that is, you have Marinaccio going to Scranton. How are you going to make room for all these guys?
It's a bad problem to have, actually, because I talked about this
Too many.
a few weeks back. Herman, Chapman, Loaiza's been trash, okay? He's been straight up doo-doo. You got Britons, and then you have these guys like Schmidt, Marinaccio, all these young cats. What's that, Luca? What's that dude's name that threw that nasty slider, I think it was, or curveball against the Pirates in that one spring training game? The righty.
Was it Wisniewski?
It wasn't Wisniewski.
Was it Weissert? I'm trying to think of
Weissert.
Greg Weissert.
Might be Weissert, but
he's down in AAA. He's amazing.
And don't forget the 2 acquisitions we made, Trevino and Efros.
Yeah. So how you gonna compile that?
It's gonna be tough because I know a lot of I see it all the time on Twitter. People want Abreu gone. Abreu's got some nasty stuff. You don't find guys that pitch 102 coming out of the pen every day, So I don't necessarily want to just trash him. The Yankees didn't want. He was part of a trade that acquired. I forget who they got, but he was part of an actual trade.
Jose Trevino.
Yeah, they got. Yeah, so they traded him to get something good. He wasn't just given away for cash consideration. So, I think that's the thing here is that's not a guy I'm just getting rid of. And Wandy Peralta, he looks like a goblin running over to the first base. But the guy has been really good for them. So looking at their bullpen, I really like Trevino. I think the moment they got him, I was like, that's a typical Yankee pickup. Mm-hmm. They're gonna utilize his speed. They're gonna utilize his sinker. I think he's definitely going to be good for them. Efros, this guy looks like he is nervous beyond all belief. I've never seen a Yankee
reaction
pitcher.
to the near home run.
The reaction last night, the home run to DeYoung.
The slider that didn't slide.
He looks absolutely horrified every time he does not look comfortable. So I think that'll be a little bit of an adjustment. Loaiza, I don't get it. I don't know. He's 27. Marinaccio's 27. I think Marinaccio's better. Everyone uses Loaiza's last year. That's not the same Loaiza you're getting. You have a negative wins above replacement this year. You have options with him, I believe. I'd probably send him down, because his whip is unacceptable. 1.56. He's walking too many guys. Didn't he walk in a run yesterday? Bases loaded. That's not acceptable. So
no, it's not.
I think when push comes to shove, if you get Britton back, Loaiza has to go. Miguel Castro, I don't even know gets on this roster. They might have to make an unfortunate decision and have to let him go because it's like, who are you taking off this roster? Maybe Litke, but not Peralta. Not Abreu. I think Abreu's fine. Abreu, he has some moments, he gets into some trouble, but more often than not, I like what they have in Abreu. I'm not getting rid of him. So, you have Abreu, you have, they got rid of JP Sears, so that opened up. Chad Green is out for the year, So you have Abreu, you have Marinaccio, you have Miguel Castro, who I will see if he makes, he makes the bullpen. Let's not forget, Castro had a 4 ERA. Like he didn't leave on the best note when he got hurt. Peralta is killing it. So I would be a little upset if they demoted a guy like that for Castro. But I do think the Yankees have enough here. It sucks, but the Yankees have enough here to alleviate the pressure losing a guy like Michael King. I do.
Right.
I think Michael King was awesome. Dude was like having, David Robertson in the 8th or Tom Gordon. But, they don't have him anymore. So they have to They have to figure it out. And I think they have, plenty there to do it. I just think if you're trying to justify putting Miguel Castro on this roster and, getting rid of an Abreu or getting rid of, Peralta, I can't subscribe to that notion.
No.
Agree. Luca, you have anything else to put out?
Nope.
All right. We'll go to Jake, Luca, and Donald for final thoughts, and we will wrap up.
So, my final thoughts are that, when it comes to the trade deadline, I think the Yankees, they got better. Obviously, it'll take some time to see. As Jack Curry put it, they have to wait until Christmas to open up the present, in regards to Bader. But I do think they had a good deadline. I think it was a little detrimental to their future since they completely they're like restarting essentially with arms. Their top arm is a guy who has to get Tommy John surgery and Gill. So that is not obviously, beneficial. But the Yankees did well. I thought the Braves did well. The Mets, they did about what I expected. I didn't think they'd go out and make any splash moves. They're more likely to pay guys. I didn't think they're not prospect huggers, but they weren't trading Alvarez. Padres, I think, made themselves astronomically better in a very short amount of time. So, that is kind of the good thing about the trade deadline. But I do think Seattle kind of fell for it a little bit. Because the trade deadline is also what I call the scam deadline. And I think they fell for the scam that is Luis Castillo. And I don't think Luis Castillo is a bad pitcher. I think he's great, and I want him to be a Yankee. But my biggest issue is you give up your first, your third, and your fifth prospect. And it doesn't even make sense because your up-and-coming shortstop, you trade away. And then the guy behind him, you trade away. So essentially, it was like the Yankees trading away both Volpe, Peraza. So now they don't have those guys. And then they trade away, Waldichuk, which they did end up trading Waldichuk. I wouldn't have done that. I would not have done that for Castillo. I probably would have only done that for like an Alcantara type of pitcher. Castillo is 29. So, it's not like you're getting him at 25, 26 years old. I do feel like Seattle made this move with the sure. I don't think they're going to win a World Series. I think they know that. But I think they had one goal in mind. Get back to the damn playoffs.
Exactly. It's been how many years?
So I think they fell for the scam deadline a little bit because of that. They were willing to play way higher, punch way higher than other guys did, way above the weight class of the Yankees, offer more.
Matt Carpenter's injured.
Are you kidding me?
He fouled the ball off of his back foot in his last at bat, and now he's pinch hit for.
That's probably precaution.
Hopefully it is.
Okay.
What's great is now they have LeCastro in the 3-hole.
Yeah, that's
rest
enjoyable.
of the game.
I just want to say, as my final thoughts, Becton's injury sucks for the Jets, but there's a bunch of tackles out there they could sign, Dwayne Brown being one of them. hopefully that's just a blip, and hopefully we continue with our positivity. Obviously, prayers out to Becton. Yankees had us out. Good trade deadline. I also want to thank Jake for coming on. I really appreciate having on another good guest. I love the setup back there. So,
Appreciate it.
Donald?
Yeah, I'm impressed with the setup. Is that Michael Myers in the background?
Oh, you know it. The GOAT.
Nice. I like it. The Yankees, no, I like the Montas trade. I do. I'm not going to look too deeply into his outing yesterday. Even CC Sabathia struggled his first outing. He's 106-degree heat. His bereavement. Pitchers are creatures of habit, and when they're not pitched in 12 days, it's only natural that there's going to be a little bit of issues with location. But in terms of his stuff, you even saw it last night. Some of his stuff was electric. He's got an electric fastball, so a nice movement. We need to give him a little bit of time. So I'm not too worried about him. As long as he proves his health, then I think he's going to be an elite pitcher. And I don't think we gave up all that much to get him. We managed to hold on to Peraza when it was almost a certainty that Peraza was going to be part of that deal. So with the fact that we managed to hold on to Peraza, why the hell are we not making use of him right freaking now? My final thought is IKF. He's 29th in baseball in outs above average as a shortstop. 13th percentile, -3 outs above average. So he's not playing good defense. There's no reason not to give Peraza this opportunity. He deserves it. And I was really frustrated by that Brandon Cootie article. It was an absolute joke.
I got so mad.
It was such a joke article. So we'll bypass that. But in general, I'm excited for Giants preseason. Me and Alex did a really good podcast. Check it out. Find it on Spotify and all these platforms. So you can get our thoughts on the Giants. But the Yankees are creaking, and but they'll stumble and they'll get to the postseason. We'll see where they are from there. I'm not overly optimistic, I'm afraid, but we'll see.
They've
got the team. It was a good deadline. I do think it was a good deadline. I completely like the deadline. Don't love the team right now, but maybe with Stanton and Rizzo healthy, I'll get back to being a bit more positive.
Yeah. Real quickly before I close out here, it was fun meeting a lot of people at FanFest. Jason, Adam, and Miz were in the chat. They went to FanFest, and I went with them, and it was nice to meet them. I also met this man who stopped by our tailgate. If you guys don't know who that is of course Nick Gates.
I was like, he looks familiar.
Yeah. If you're gonna ask me, guys, I personally don't know where he is in his rehab right now. He's taking it day by day. I know obviously he was doing some drills, I think yesterday in camp to the side. He's on the PUP list. So hopefully he gets back sometime soon because the Giants offensive line really needs it. Shame about Mekhi Becton, but of course they got to sign Dwayne Brown. I think U Stadium said that he had a source that Dwayne Brown took his physical and that, there's possibly a deal looming, possibly. I mean, I don't know. To be fair, as far as the Yankees go, I think they'll come up from this slump, but you can't go back down too much because of the fact that, the Astros could be the number one seed. And even if you tie with them, they have the tiebreaker. So, when that number one seed is so important. The trade deadline was good.
Josh Donaldson just hit a home run.
Okay, so I guess Josh Donaldson, I've been 3-something in his last 7 games. So
415 to left field.
Apparently, we've been all wrong about him. But he needs to prove it on a more consistent basis.
Yeah, he's got to keep this up, but it's looking good. Glaber just had a nice single to deep right, so they're getting in on Gilbert. Like I said, they have to rattle him early on because if he gets into a rhythm, he's really hard to beat.
Win the series. That's my thing.
They have to win the series.
And I forget who they play next, but win this series.
Red Sox.
Oh, that's not gonna be good.
Did you see the K-Rod simulcast on ESPN2? Is anybody gonna watch that?
No.
Michael Kay, Alex Rodriguez, and Derek Jeter.
I'm when they announced
that
that.
does sound interesting.
I mean,
When
it's
they-
Jeter and A-Rod on national television.
is
for the
pretty
first
much
time,
it.
I didn't
like-
realize Jeter was going to be on. Maybe
That
I'll
is going to
tune
be
into it.
interesting.
Maybe I'll tune into it.
I'm absolutely tuning in.
Yeah.
It's to
that's
promote
pretty
the
interesting.
documentary clearly, but I also think it's going to be actually like something. So
Yeah, they'll probably get a lot of questions and all that stuff from social media. But
fight each other. No,
we appreciate you guys. Jake, thanks for coming on. His stuff is in the description.
thanks for having me.
And,
I appreciate it.
Yep, very good discussion. I'll be at Giants camp tomorrow. 12:30 p.m. is Big Blue in the Bronx podcast premiere. Donald was the one who joined me, and we talked for an hour about the Giants in camp and then the preview against the Patriots. But we appreciate you guys. Let's go Yankees. Hopefully they stick this out through the rest of the series, the rest of the game, and we'll see you next time. Peace.